Chapter 359. Yan Qixue looked at the white-robed and calm Xiao Chen and said indifferently, "Today, I will seek justice for my second brother." Dragon seizing hand. Yan Qixue clapped his hands, and a huge black palm appeared in the sky. This was the Yan clan's inherited martial technique, the dragon seizing hand. The huge hand was 100 meters wide, and the patterns on the palm could be seen clearly. When it descended, it felt like it covered the sky and covered the sun. Boom! A bolt of lightning flashed in the sky, and Xiao Chen leaped into the air. Electric light flickered on the snow-white lunar shadow saber, and a saber light appeared. Chop! Xiao Chen shouted and swung his saber. The huge black palm was instantly chopped in half, splitting it in the middle. Yan Qixue's expression did not change. He flipped his palm, and the huge black hand in the air immediately healed. The huge black hand grabbed at Xiao Chen, who was in the air. Xiao Chen's figure flashed, and he moved 100 meters to the side before landing on the ground. Bang! The huge black hand that had just landed clenched into a fist and punched at Xiao Chen. The might of the huge hand was very strong. If Xiao Chen clashed head-on, he would exhaust himself. Furthermore, this was just an appetizer, it would be disadvantageous for the later battles. I'll dodge it first. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen's figure flickered continuously. The huge black hand smashed the arena, causing it to tremble continuously. However, it could not catch up to Xiao Chen's speed. Instead, it drained its essence continuously. After a long time of not being able to take down Xiao Chen, its momentum started to weaken. Right now, Xiao Chen found an opportunity. He felt that the speed of the huge black hand had slowed down significantly. Xiao Chen quickly sheathed the lunar shadow saber and raised his right hand to the sky. A similar huge black hand appeared, and its two fingers formed a sword. It pierced through Yan Qixue's huge black hand. Isn't this the inherited martial technique of my Yan clan? He does not have an inherited martial spirit. Even if he had a secret technique, he would not be able to learn it. When Yan Qixue saw the sudden appearance of the huge black hand, he was stunned. Xiao Chen's expression turned grave, he did not give Yan Qixue any chance to hesitate. The giant black hand clenched into a fist and slammed into Yan Qixue's body. Puchi! Yan Qixue's face paled, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He was slammed to the ground, and he still could not understand what was going on. Xiao Chen gently waved his hand, and the giant black hand slapped Yan Qixue's body out of the arena with tremendous force. He actually defeated Yan Qixue in one move, and he even used the Yan clan's inherited martial technique. This Xiao Chen is too surprising. They both used inherited martial techniques, but Yan Qixue actually lost to an outsider. How embarrassing! Several cultivators in the spectator stands commented. They were not optimistic about Yan Qixue and Xiao Chen's duel in the first place, so they were not too surprised. However, he did not expect that Yan Qixue would not even last 10 moves from Xiao Chen and would lose just like that. Look, the Guy Marquis is going up. I wonder who will win this time. The surrounding cultivators perked up again. The Guy Marquis was wearing golden battle armor. He held the 2-meter-long holy weapon, the Sky Splitter, in his hand. He looked at Xiao Chen and said, "You have been fighting continuously and have exhausted a lot of essence. I will give you a handicap of 3 moves. After 3 moves, I will make my move." Xiao Chen smiled faintly, "There is no need for you to give me a handicap. We will talk after you can block 3 moves from me." Rushing thunder roars, 10,000 horses gallop. The Guy Marquis was not Yan Qixue. He was much stronger than the latter. Xiao Chen did not have any intention of testing the other party. He was prepared to end the fight quickly. He did not wish to drag it out. That would not be good for him. Hence, he immediately used his big move. Thunderclouds churned in the sky and a huge electric whirlpool appeared out of nowhere. Instantly, the clear sky turned dark. As the whirlpool spun, electric light flickered. The lightning attributed spiritual energy in the surroundings quickly gathered. Rumble, rumble. The sound of thousands of horses galloping resounded from the electric whirlpool. The sound resounded throughout the entire drill grounds, reaching the ears of every cultivator. What martial technique is this? Why is the mysterious phenomenon so shocking? When the cultivators in the spectator stands felt the horrifying energy from the electric whirlpool, their expressions all changed. The Guy Marquis's expression turned grave. With a dang sound, he stabbed the sky splitter into the ground in front of him. Zzz. Ripples appeared in the surrounding space. They were like water, causing the figure of the Guy Marquis to turn blurry. Xiaochen felt that the other party was thousands of kilometers away from him. Furthermore, the Guy Marquis's figure was floating without a definite location. The Guy Marquis had used the might of the holy weapon to change the natural laws of the arena, causing everyone's senses to turn chaotic. However, in the end, you are only using the holy weapon to change the natural laws. It is not your own strength. In front of absolute strength, the natural laws are useless. Xiaochen shouted, and all the lightning-attributed knights in the whirlpool gathered together. Then, a knight flickering with golden electric light walked out. The golden knight roared ferociously. It held up its spear and broke through the obstruction of space, charging at the Guy Marquis at lightning speed. When the golden knight was 100 meters away from the Guy Marquis, his body turned blurry. His lightning-fast speed turned into slow motion, allowing everyone to see him clearly. Who? It was like the golden knight had run for tens of thousands of meters. Time seemed to last forever. However, the flickering golden knight could not touch the Guy Marquis, it was still 100 meters away. However, this situation did not last for long. The rippling space started to crack. Soon, the entire small world shattered. There was a limit to how much the holy weapon could change the natural laws. It could not be extended indefinitely. After the electric knight ran for tens of thousands of meters, the golden light of its spear had already dimmed. However, it was still resplendent and dazzling. Dang! The Guy Marquis held his sword horizontally in front of him. The broad blade of the sword pressed against the tip of the spear. A huge force pushed the Guy Marquis back continuously. The Guy Marquis's feet sank deep into the ground. After a while, 2 deep ditches appeared on the ground. The Guy Marquis retreated to the edge of the arena. Half of his feet were in the air. Unable to retreat, the Guy Marquis shouted and leaned back slightly. Then, he swung the sky-splitting sword with both hands. Just as the tip of the spear was about to pierce him, the sword struck the electric knight. Xiaochen knew how horrifying the Guy Marquis's strength was when he was in the ink forest. The electric knight, which had already run for tens of thousands of meters, had exhausted a large portion of its energy. Naturally, the outcome was easy to imagine. There was a loud sound and the force of the sword blasted it into purple electric currents that scattered into the air. Wukuei shakes the heavens. Everything was within Xiaochen's control. He had already stored up energy and executed the rare move of the Wukuei saber technique. The ancient divine Wukuei tree appeared from nowhere. Its branches were luxuriant, covering the sky and sun. It gave off a resplendent purple light. It was like a mountain made of lightning as it pressed down on the Guy Marquis. The Guy Marquis, who had lost the initiative, had yet to recover his wits from the first killing move. He could only place his left hand on his sword, hoping to block this divine Wukuei tree. Bang! The Guy Marquis had no way to resist. The absolute force crushed a corner of the arena into rubble. The Guy Marquis's feet slipped and he fell off the arena along with the rubble. The lightning-attributed energy of the divine Wukuei tree did not show any signs of dissipating. It tore through the Guy Marquis's defenses and pressed down on his chest. Pu-ci. The huge force caused the Guy Marquis's internal organs to tremble. He could not help but vomit a mouthful of blood. Xiaochen's figure flashed and stood above the arena. He looked calmly at the Guy Marquis on the ground. He said indifferently, "Do you still want to continue?" The Guy Marquis felt extremely dissatisfied. He still had many killing moves that he had not executed. If he had attacked from the start, he would not have ended up in such a passive position. He could not even receive 2 moves. However, it was already too late. Against Xiao Chen, he still dared to be arrogant. His fate was sealed long ago. Unfortunately, this Guy Marquis' defeat is too unjust. To think he was so arrogant, giving Xiao Chen the opportunity to execute his killing move with his full power. Otherwise, he would not have lost so easily, getting knocked off the arena in 2 moves. He dealt with Yan Qixue in 1 move and the Guy Marquis in 2 moves. Furthermore, he fought in consecutive battles and defeated the people from the Holy Lands. What is the limit of this Xiao Chen? Could it be that the noble clan heirs could not defeat him in a continuous battle? After consecutive battles and consecutive victories, Xiao Chen displayed startling strength, shocking everyone. At this moment, there were already people who suspected that he might become famous in 1 battle, shocking the world, trampling on the geniuses of these noble clans and climbing to the peak that belonged to him. That is impossible. The 2 killing moves earlier exhausted a lot of essence. In the end, he is only a peak medial grade martial saint. At most, he would have half of his essence left. The remaining people are all noble heirs with high-ranked inherited martial spirits. Each one is stronger than the last. His essence will only decrease. I guess that he will be defeated soon. Furthermore, don't forget that there is still Mu Qingxue, whose strength we do not know. The moment these words were spoken, there were immediately people who retorted. They felt that it was impossible and that Xiao Chen would definitely lose today. Xiao Chen turned a deaf ear to the heated discussions outside the arena. His mental state had already reached a state where he would not be affected by praise or humiliation. The discussions of the outside world did not affect him at all. Hua Yunfei is going up. I heard that he awakened an ancient evil soul. This is the true showdown. Up in the arena, Hua Yunfei looked at the dilapidated arena. He frowned slightly and said, "Let's go to another place." The 2 of them flew up and landed firmly on a brand new arena. Hua Yunfei quickly drew the scarlet sword in his hand. Xiao Chen revealed an evil smile on his handsome face. Although I have only comprehended the state of massacre to small perfection, it is sufficient to deal with you now. Pu Ci. Without giving Xiao Chen a chance to speak, Hua Yunfei sent out a scarlet sword qi. His figure followed the sword qi and quickly pressed forward. Clearly, Xiao Chen did not want to make the same mistake as the Guy Marquis. Glittering Wukue. Xiao Chen gently swung the lunar shadow saber and sent out a strand of dense purple saber qi. This was the first move of the Wukue saber technique infused with the state of thunder. Hua Yunfei smiled faintly and said, "The state of massacre is on a higher level than all other states. No matter how powerful your state of thunder is, it is useless." Pu Ci. The incomparably ferocious state of massacre on the scarlet sword qi easily shattered the purple saber qi that Xiao Chen sent out. Bloody world, shadowless sword passing. Chapter 360. Taking advantage of the time when Xiao Chen dodged the scarlet sword qi, Hua Yunfei's killing move followed closely behind. Scarlet light filled the air. There seemed to be countless scarlet figures executing sword techniques in the arena. Strands of scarlet sword qi moved at a strange frequency, fluctuating like the sea. A horrifying state of massacre spread throughout the entire arena, causing everyone's heart to tremble. Dang! 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 Activating the windwalk shoes, Xiao Chen moved about in the sky filled with sword images. He brandished his saber and chopped apart the sword qi flying at him. Every sword shadow seemed to be a real martial artist wielding a long sword to attack, stab, chop, hack, or flick. The angle of the attacks was random, and they came and went without a trace. It was tiring to deal with them. Hua Yunfei actually managed to completely learn an ancient martial technique. He truly lives up to his reputation as a rare genius of the Hua clan. This time, Xiao Chen is in danger. Indeed. Ancient martial techniques and current martial techniques are not of the same system. Normally, even if one obtained an ancient martial technique, it would be very difficult to truly master it. It would be very difficult to use it in actual combat. Look at this arena. There are endless sword images rising and falling one after another. Even a martial king would find it hard to block them. When the cultivators in the spectator stands saw the scarlet sword images filling the arena, they recognized that this was an ancient martial technique. They could not help but worry for Xiao Chen. Hua Yunfei's figure was hidden among these sword images. Occasionally, he would send out a sharp sword attack, catching people off guard. In an instant, Xiao Chen's arms and legs suffered from several sword wounds, no matter how fast he was. Even if he was fast, he would not be able to dodge these unending and unpredictable sword images. Xiao Chen could only do his best to avoid any injuries to his vital points. Furthermore, there was a state of massacre that interfered with Xiao Chen's heart. There were killing moves hidden within the killing moves, one after another. This martial technique was truly unimaginable. Ha! Xiao Chen, this move must not be easy to take, right? Thanks to you, I awakened the ancient evil soul in my body. This martial technique is the inheritance of the ancient evil soul. In the ancient era, the evil soul used this move. The continuous stream of sword shadows could cover an area of 100 meters, encompassing heaven and earth. If a god blocked it, it would kill a god, and if a demon blocked it, it would kill a demon. Hua Yunfei looked at the tired Xiao Chen and laughed arrogantly. He wanted to strike a blow to Xiao Chen's fighting spirit and make him collapse prematurely. His mind was clear. Xiao Chen kept his heart calm. He was not worried, not confused, and not afraid. Xiao Chen ignored Hua Yunfei's words and wandered around the arena, exhibiting the state of thunder to its peak. Xiao Chen blocked the red sword shadows that came from all directions. At the same time, he did his best to discern the pattern of these sword shadows. The state of thunder infused with holy might could only barely knock these sword shadows back, it could not completely destroy them. The state of massacre is indeed not easy to deal with, Xiao Chen thought to himself. However, it is fortunate that I have the state of massacre as well. After blocking for a while, Xiao Chen finally figured out the pattern of the sword shadows. It was time to make a move. Xiao Chen gently removed the blue strip of cloth from his forehead. A scarlet mark appeared on his forehead. Xiao Chen's angular face immediately turned strange. The scarlet throne mark on his forehead released a strand of red light. Under the illumination of the red light, Xiao Chen's face looked even more strange. Wukuei transforms to qi. Xiao Chen shouted and merged the state of massacre with the state of thunder. Occasionally, a red light flickered among the hundreds of purple saber qi formed by the divine Wukuei tree. Bang! 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 In the arena, the scarlet sword qi and the purplish-red saber qi clashed in the air. A series of explosions rang out, ringing out endlessly in the sky above Lei Tian. Hua Yunfei's expression changed slightly. He grasped the scarlet sword tightly and said in disbelief, "How did you comprehend the state of massacre as well?" The continuous sounds of explosions created violent air currents in the air, and the surrounding railings of the arena were immediately smashed into pieces. Xiao Chen's hair fluttered and his white robes fluttered. He smiled gently and said, "Who made the rule that you are the only one who can comprehend the state of massacre?" Qi breaks Wukuei. The purple and red saber qi contained the berserk state of thunder and the state of massacre. It pierced through the boundless shockwaves and headed for Hua Yunfei. Hua Yunfei brandished his sword and gathered the scattered scarlet light on his sword. He thrust the tip of his sword forward and a spot of scarlet light appeared, blocking the tip of the saber qi. Z! Z! The two states clashed intensely in the air, neither giving way to the other. They gave off crackling sounds and scarlet ripples appeared in the air. The states surged forward. Boom! Just as the two states clashed with each other, thunder suddenly roared in the sky. An electric light suddenly shot out from the purple and red saber qi. Hua Yunfei's state immediately broke. He quickly dodged backward. However, the saber chi still pierced through his right shoulder, leaving behind a finger-sized bloody hole. So, I was only clashing with the pure state of massacre earlier. I did not even use the state of thunder, Hua Yunfei thought in horror. You are far from being able to compare states with me. I don't care what ancient martial technique you have. Break. Xiao Chen leaped up gently and his figure flashed. He infused the state of massacre into the state of thunder and brandished his saber chi, forcing Hua Yunfei to defend. The situation immediately reversed. Xiao Chen's figure danced around. Strands of purple and red saber chi easily destroyed all of Hua Yunfei's killing moves. Blood shadow chop. Break. Sea of blood and mountain of corpses. Break. Blood illuminating the mountains and rivers. Break. No matter how many powerful moves you have, my two states, the state of thunder and the state of massacre, will break them with one saber strike. Break. 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 Hua Yunfei vomited 3 mouthfuls of blood. Xiao Chen broke all 3 of his killing moves with one saber strike. The surging energy was like a tsunami, forcing Hua Yunfei to retreat. Ding! The ferocious energy surged over again. The sword in Hua Yunfei's hand was immediately knocked away. Xiao Chen stepped forward and sent a palm strike at Hua Yunfei's chest, sending him flying. Hua Yunfei's body slid quickly across the arena. Soon, he reached the edge of the arena. His complexion was pale as he struggled to stand up. Suddenly, he felt a chill on his neck. It was Xiao Chen moving over and pressing his saber against his neck. Xiao Chen said expressionlessly, Hua Yunfei, you have lost. I did not lose. How could I lose to trash like you? Back then, I could easily kill you with one finger. This is impossible. Hua Yunfei pulled the saber away from his neck and leaped up. Then, he launched himself at Xiao Chen. Reckless fool. Xiao Chen kicked Hua Yunfei's face. The huge force caused Hua Yunfei to flip several times in the air. He landed head first outside the arena. He won again. Xiao Chen won again. Who can end him? Hua Yunfei's strength is at the peak of martial saints. He has grasped an ancient martial technique. Even a regular martial king would be able to kill him easily. However, he still lost to Xiao Chen. How many trump cards does Xiao Chen have? I think the state of massacre is his final trump card. However, even if he knows it, it will still be difficult to deal with. Another overwhelming victory caused the crowd to erupt into an uproar. Some people even firmly believed that Xiao Chen would be able to defeat all his opponents. Today, on the heaven viewing platform, Xiao Chen had fought many battles. Regardless of whether his opponents were from the Holy Lands or the geniuses of the noble clans, none of them were mediocre. However, without exception, Xiao Chen defeated his opponents in an overwhelming manner. With such strength, even if he lost the next few matches, there was no need to doubt his talent and strength. As long as Xiao Chen could escape this calamity, he would definitely rise up in the future. At that time, the noble clans would be like floating clouds in his eyes. High up in the clouds, Nangong Lai watched the scene on the heaven viewing platform. He smiled faintly and said, "It looks like there is no need for us to make a move. This brat might be able to escape this calamity." Ing Yu looked around and said softly, "Now, it all depends on the people from the Holy Lands. These noble clans might not be able to stop him." On the platform, the elders of the noble clans had unsightly expressions. They wanted to move but did not dare to. They felt very sullen. The Misty Sword sect's first elder said softly, "Chao Yun, how confident are you of dealing with this brat?" Chu Chaoyun carried his sword on his back and smiled gently, "Victory will be decided in one move." "What do you think, First Elder?" "Ha ha. In that case, I can rest assured," the Misty Sword sect's first elder laughed happily. Up in the arena, Xiao Chen looked at Duanmuking, Ji Changkong, and Mu Qingxue. He said softly, "The 3 of you, come at me together. Otherwise, you will not stand a chance against me. The moment Xiao Chen said that, everyone's heart skipped a beat. Is this Xiao Chen crazy? He actually took the initiative to ask them to attack together. Ji Changkong smiled coldly and said, Xiao Chen, if you are really seeking death, I am not afraid to grant your wish. No expression could be seen on Duanmuking's cold face. He said coldly, do you really think that you are qualified? Mu Qingxue held the holy weapon, beauty under the moon. He revealed a playful smile on his handsome face. He said softly, if you only have this much strength, you are not even qualified to force me to draw my sword. The three of them were proud and arrogant people, dragons and phoenixes among men. Since they were young, they had enjoyed the limelight of everyone. They had all sorts of halos above their heads. When had they ever been looked down on like this? Boom! 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 3 strong auras soared into the sky. A resplendent starlight and countless stars flickered. That was Ji Changkong's state of stars. A bone-chilling coldness spread in the sky. A cold light shone brightly, and a boundless cold chi spread in the air. It was Duan Muqing's peak great perfection state of ice. A gentle and warm moonlight scattered down, moving one's heart like a cool breeze. This was Mu Qingshue's strange state of bright moon. Under the calm surface, there was an overwhelming aura. When the 3 auras merged, they shattered the clouds in the sky. Winds blew, clouds churned, and the sky changed color. All the cultivators in the drill grounds felt a strong pressure on their shoulders. It was like a mountain pressing down on them. Dressed in white robes, Xiao Chen held a saber with a sharp saber light. He smiled faintly at the strong aura. He gently raised his right leg and stomped it down. With the dragon and tiger body sculpting art at peak great perfection, Xiao Chen's pure strength could reach 50,000 kilograms of force. With his full power, he could reach 50,000 kilograms of force. When infused with essence, he could reach 100,000 kilograms of force. More importantly, this force could be freely controlled and perfectly manipulated. Chapter 361. Xiao Chen merged his essence and strength with this one kick and stomped on the ground gently. The wide arena made of heavenly mountain stones and frost iron slowly sank into the ground. Bang! 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 The ground of the drill ground could not withstand the pressure of the arena sinking into the ground. Deep cracks formed and quickly spread out. The cracks continued to spread, and the other arenas on the drill ground were torn apart and smashed into pieces. The 1,000-meter-long drill ground shook incessantly, and even the surrounding spectator stands were shaking. The shaking continued for a long time before it slowly stopped. The arena under Xiao Chen's feet was now level with the ground. A surging aura surged out from Xiao Chen's body. It clashed with the auras of Duanmuking's group of 3, giving off a sharp aura. Now, do I have the qualifications for the 3 of you to attack me together? Xiao Chen said calmly. His handsome face, which was like a scabbard, revealed its sharpness. It was like an unsheathed treasured saber. He only wanted to find someone to test how sharp this treasured saber was. Xiao Chen had long wanted to test his true strength, to see how strong he was. He had not had enough in the previous few matches. This feeling was like getting more and more excited. Just as you were about to unleash your full power, the other party was already lying on the ground, leaving you with nowhere to exert your strength. This happened over and over again. Xiao Chen had had enough of it. Now, he only wanted to fight to his heart's content and fight with all his might. Suddenly, the silent Feng Shuani on the platform said, if this fellow can win this match, then he will snatch away all the luck of these noble heirs. Who knows, he might really become a legend in the future. The strength that Xiao Chen displayed and his strong aura caused the expressions of the 3 to change. They were greatly startled. Silence? In that case, I will take it as your tacit agreement. Xiao Chen said indifferently. He pushed off the ground and relied on pure force to shoot towards the 3 like an arrow. Ji Changkong shouted coldly, if you are seeking death, then I can't be bothered to talk about morality with you. Astral sword technique, resplendent starlight. The sky above the arena suddenly turned pitch black. Countless stars twinkled in the sky, and the day turned into night in an instant. Countless starlight descended, and a deep starry sky appeared in Ji Changkong's eyes. He raised his sword and used the starlight to clash. Ding! At the same time, Mu Qingxue unsheathed his sacred weapon, Beauty under the moonlight. The blade of his sword reflected a golden full moon. In that moonlight, there seemed to be another world. A long and drawn-out, like a woman's beautiful and pleasant voice, rang out, tugging at the heartstrings of those who heard it. Duan Muking, who had been silent for a long time, also made his move at this moment. His jet-black hair turned white, and his eyes completely lost all human emotions, becoming incomparably cold. A slender sword appeared in her hand. It carried a bone-chilling state of ice as it stabbed fiercely at Xiao Chen. At this moment, even if she was not willing to admit it, she was not a match for Xiao Chen alone. When Xiao Chen saw the three attacking at the same time, he smiled faintly. He suddenly stopped and landed firmly on the ground. Xiao Chen brandished his saber and the image of a flower bud appeared under his feet. After a while, the Wukue flower bud flickered with alternating purple and red light, enveloping Xiao Chen. Bang! 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 When the attacks of Duan Muking and the other two landed on the flower bud, it did not budge at all. The purple electric light and scarlet light flickered continuously, looking very strange. The three exchanged glances and the essence in their bodies quickly surged. Then, they launched an even more ferocious attack. The strong sword techniques infused with the states of the three struck the ground, creating deep trenches. However, that strange flower bud did not budge at all. Within the flower bud, Xiao Chen's expression did not change. He suppressed the surging qi and blood in his body and quickly formed hand seals. Wukue blossoms. When the three of them were about to launch their third attack, the alternating purple and red flower buds suddenly blossomed. A surging shockwave spread out in all directions. The three of them were caught off guard and were swept back by the shockwave. Countless flower petals danced in the air within the shockwave. The entire sky of the drill grounds was filled with alternating purple and red flower petals. It was incomparably beautiful. Xiao Chen pushed off the ground and caught up to the slower Ji Changkong. After passing through the sky full of flower petals, Xiao Chen's speed increased explosively. In an instant, he caught up to Ji Changkong. Ji Changkong's expression turned grave. Suddenly, he grew 100 meters taller and turned around. The star that belonged to him in the boundless starry sky suddenly lit up. A resplendent pillar of light descended from the distant sky. Astral swordplay, eternal light. A majestic sword light shot out from the sword at Xiao Chen, who was behind him, at lightning speed. Boom! The sword light was like a pillar, it was resplendent and dazzling. When it struck the ground of the drill grounds, it created a deep black hole that made one's heart palpitate. This series of actions happened in the time it took for a spark to fly. It was so fast that no one could keep up with it. Did I hit him? Ji Changkong frowned slightly and took a deep breath. To be able to execute this move in such a short period of time, Ji Changkong was already doing very well. The might is pretty good. Unfortunately, I can't hit him. In the end, it is useless. Suddenly, Xiao Chen's calm voice came from behind Ji Changkong. Ji Changkong's expression immediately changed. He quickly turned around and held his sword horizontally in front of his chest. Dang! Ji Changkong chopped down with his saber and was knocked back several meters. His right hand, which was holding the sword, felt numb from the impact. He quickly switched to a two-handed grip. The petals filled the sky and there were invisible motes of light. When the motes of light landed on Xiao Chen's body, his speed increased by 30%. Ji Changkong had just retreated when Xiao Chen arrived at his side again. His saber light flickered, following him like a shadow. In an instant, he sent out more than 100 attacks. Retreat! Retreat. Retreat again. Ji Changkong barely managed to block Xiao Chen's attacks. He was suppressed to the point where he did not even have a chance to breathe. In one breath, he retreated several hundred meters. Hu Qi. A strand of killing qi came from behind. Xiao Chen dodged to the side. It was Mu Qingxue charging over with the beauty under the moonlight. Ji Changkong took a deep breath and retreated 100 meters. Just as Xiao Chen dodged Mu Qingxue's attack, an extremely cold aura came from above. Duan Muking was charging over as well. Xiao Chen smiled gently and swept his saber forward, knocking away Mu Qingxue's sword. After that, he quickly somersaulted and dodged the attacks of the two. Dang! 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 The attacks of the two were relentless. They brought out the state of ice to its limits. The cold qi penetrated Xiao Chen's skin and entered his body, causing him to slow down slightly. Occasionally, a soft hum came from Mu Qingxue's sword. Everyone could not help but turn their ears to listen, disrupting Xiao Chen's state of mind. The state of massacre infused into his saber technique. Xiao Chen maintained his original state of mind. He blocked left and right, blocking the attacks of the two. She was able to block the sword, but she could not block the sword light on the sword. Her white robes were torn, and blood appeared on her fair skin. Duan Muking and Ji Changkong were not in a good state either. Xiao Chen's sword light contained two states at the same time. When it struck them, the damage they caused was even more obvious. Ha! A beam of starlight descended behind Xiao Chen. Ji Changkong had finished resting and rejoined the battle. The three of them formed a large circle, surrounding Xiao Chen. The three of them fought among the petals that filled the air. They kicked up dust, ice, starlight, moonlight, and the occasional flickering of scarlet lightning. Dust filled the air, and energy spread everywhere. Everyone in the spectator stands opened their eyes wide as they watched the battle anxiously. The intensity of the battle completely surpassed their expectations. Xiao Chen fought 1 against 3, surrounded by danger. He was like a lone boat on the sea in a violent storm. It swayed back and forth, looking like it would be swallowed by the waves at any moment. However, it stopped and did not sink. Just when everyone thought that he would be killed, he strangely dodged their killing moves and launched a sharp counterattack. His white robes had already turned red from the blood. Xiao Chen smiled bitterly to himself. I finally feel carefree this time. However, the price I paid is rather high. However, I am a cultivator. I am born in a great age where geniuses appear in large numbers. If I do not go against the heavens and face the difficulties head-on, how can I stand out from the crowd? How can I reach the peak of cultivation in the future? Xiao Chen reared his head back and laughed loudly. A heroic spirit rose in his heart. He could not help but speed up his movements, deflecting the attacks of the three. Let's see how long you can last. Again. Ji Changkong roared ferociously. Starlight flickered around him as he quickly charged forward again. Up until now, both sides were truly enraged. At this moment, it was no longer a competition of strength. It was a competition of willpower. The one who could persevere and not collapse first would be the one who had the last laugh. Duan Muking's white hair fluttered in the wind. His expression did not change at all, there were no visible fluctuations. A cold qi surged from his entire body, chilling everyone to the bone. Even Mu Qingxue and Ji Changkong were unwilling to get close. It was hard to imagine how Xiao Chen, who was the target of this cold qi, could persevere. The cold was bone-piercing. However, Xiao Chen had already cultivated dragon tendon tiger bone long ago. His body was reborn, and the cold qi could not penetrate his meridians. Although it was unbearable, he could persevere. Dang! 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 The seemingly never-ending battle continued for another hour. Under the sharp attacks, the four of them were covered in wounds of various sizes. However, the weapons in their hands did not stop. Such a high-intensity battle was a great test of their willpower. Xiao! A fierce flame started burning in Xiao Chen's right eye. Finally, all the flames gathered together and elongated into a purple arrow. The arrow headed for Duanmuking, who posed the greatest threat among the three. Duanmuking's expression changed slightly. He felt a dangerous aura in his heart. He quickly retreated and ice formed around his body. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. He did not care about the might of the purple light. He looked around and immediately attacked Ji Changkong, who was behind him. Xiao Chen had been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. Of the three, Ji Changkong was the weakest. Xiao Chen could only look for an opening. Xiao Chen first diverted the strongest, Duanmuking, and broke their encirclement. Then, he quickly made his move. After Duanmuking left, the cold qi in Xiao Chen's body immediately dissipated. His ghostly movement technique reappeared. He turned around and stabbed his sword into Ji Changkong's chest. Chapter 362. Wukuei supporting the heavens. The purple-red petals that filled the air formed a mottled whirlpool as they quickly entered the wound. Bang! Ji Changkong's body fell backward rapidly. The purplish-red flower petals quickly took root in his body. A purplish-red wukuei tree trunk grew out of his wound. Countless branches slowly extended from the trunk of the tree. After a while, the branches became luxuriant, covering the sky. On every branch, there were strange purplish-red barren sunflowers. Mu Qingshue's expression turned grave and a murderous intent appeared in his eyes. Taking advantage of this opening, his sword hummed and filled the air with killing qi. Under the gentle moonlight, it quickly stabbed at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen could not split his attention with this attack, he had no chance to dodge. In reality, Xiao Chen had no intention of dodging. He continued to focus on forming hand seals, controlling the growth of the wukuei tree. The wind created by the sword already hurt Xiao Chen's face. The tip of the sword was only 10 meters away from him. Boom! A jade pendant on Xiao Chen's chest lit up with a dazzling light. A formless barrier enveloped Xiao Chen. This was the secret treasure that Xiao Chen had won the bid for. When Mu Qingxue struck the barrier with his full strength, he was reflected back 30%. He vomited a mouthful of blood and was knocked back. After the barrier blocked the attack, it slowly shattered. After Xiao Chen finished forming his hand seals, he turned around and quickly chased after Mu Qingxue. The wukuei tree behind Xiao Chen was completely formed. Countless roots extended into Mu Qingxue's meridians, firmly suppressing him. He was in so much pain that he wished he were dead. No matter how he struggled, it was useless. Mu Qingxue wiped off the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at the approaching Xiao Chen. He smiled coldly and the moonlight on his sword suddenly rippled. The surrounding space immediately turned blurry. As Xiao Chen flew through the air, it seemed like Mu Qingxue was always a distance away from him, he could not get close. Right now, I have used my holy weapon to change the laws to create a miniature world. It is already more than 500 kilometers wide. Let's see how you break it. You can forget about catching up to me in your lifetime. Mu Qingxue's voice reverberated throughout the space. It seemed as though it was right beside their ears, yet it also seemed as though it was far away. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. I've said it before, as long as it's not a law that you've comprehended yourself, in the face of absolute power, laws are ineffective. Hearing the sword, Xiao Chen shouted, and the lunar shadow saber formation in his hand flashed. The snow-white saber turned pitch black, and its sharpness wantonly turned into a true heavenly weapon. Wukuei breaks the heavens. I can even break the heavens. Why would I fear your insignificant laws? An ancient divine tree quickly formed above Xiao Chen's head. Thunder roared incessantly in the sky above the drill ground as the state of thunder circulated to the extreme. Boom! A deafening clap of thunder descended from the sky. When the divine tree finished growing, Xiao Chen's saber lit up with a resplendent pillar of light. The pillar of light quickly elongated, rushing towards Mu Qingxue. With the aid of the state of massacre and the heavenly weapon, whatever laws of heaven and earth, they immediately shattered. The moonlight on the sword in Mu Qingshue's hand quickly dimmed. The pillar of light did not even have time to blink before it struck his chest. The crowd in the drill ground only saw a beam of light. Then, Mu Qingshue's body flew to the distant horizon, disappearing from everyone's sight. Before Xiaoqin could rest for a while, he immediately felt a cold qi spreading rapidly in the drill ground. Duanmuking had completely dodged that lightning-fast purple thunder true fire. He was currently executing his killing move. Boom! 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 The cold qi on the ground quickly gathered and formed a huge ice prison. It surrounded the entire drill ground. In an instant, everyone could only see thick walls of ice, they could not see what was happening inside. Within the ice prison, a pitch-black saber rested on Duanmuking's neck. Xiaoqin wiped off the blood at the corner of his lips and said indifferently, "Give up. I still have one move of my Wukuei saber technique that I have not executed. You have no chance." The instant the ice froze, Xiaoqin executed the blue dragon cloud soaring art to its limits. He executed the blue dragon tail whip. He managed to arrive just as Duanmuking was about to execute his killing move. Xiaoqin placed his saber on Duanmuking's neck. Rumble. After a moment of silence, the ferocious ice-attributed energy in Duanmuking's hand finally scattered. The ice prison immediately melted and Duanmuking's white hair turned black. There was no blood on Duanmuking's pale face. A trace of fatigue flashed in his eyes. He said softly, "Actually, you won from the very start. Duanmuking is not as skilled as you. In the future, the grudge between you and the Duanmu clan will end here." After Xiaoqin spoke, he slowly walked out of the drill ground. After a while, a figure suddenly fell from the sky and landed heavily on the ground. He bounced a few times on the ground before coming to a stop. It was Mu Qingxue, who had been blasted into the clouds by the Wukuei breaking the heavens. He was already injured. Now that he fell from a height of a few thousand meters, he vomited blood on top of his injuries. He found it difficult to even speak. His vision was blurred by the blood, he was in a sorry state. The entire drill ground was deathly silent. Xiaoqin fought 1 against 3 and obtained the final victory. First, he defeated the Holy Land experts. Then, he defeated the various noble clan disciples. Along the way, Xiaoqin did not stop to rest. None of his opponents were mediocre, they were all famous outstanding talents. However, they were all defeated by this white-robed bladesman. No one was a match for him, not even 3 against 1. After this battle, Xiaoqian's name would shake the world. He would become the true leader of the younger generation of the great Qin nation. Xiaoqian was the true main character of today's grand occasion. He had completely overshadowed Leng Liusu, who became a peak inferior grade martial king at the age of 17. Many people felt excited in their hearts. Perhaps many years later, they might be the ones to witness the start of a legend. As Xiaoqian walked, the shattered ice on the drill ground gave off a loud, peng-peng sound. Every step he took made him feel dizzy. However, he had to continue moving forward. There were some things he had to say to the person lying on the ground. He had to say them personally to the person who forced him into a dead end. Mu Qingshue's vision was blurry as he coughed continuously. When he heard footsteps, he struggled to stand up. However, a scabbard ruthlessly stabbed him. "You once said that the higher you fly, the more painful it will be when you fall. Look at you now. Looking at you now, I believe this sentence even more. Thank you. I will always remember this sentence. I will not allow myself to be in danger of falling." When Mu Qingxue heard this, he coughed violently a few times. He smiled miserably in his heart. He had just fallen from the clouds. He finally understood the saying, "The higher you fly, the more painful the fall will be." Perhaps I should not have made an enemy of this person. Some people are destined to soar to the sky. Even if you managed to pull them down temporarily, you would only become a stepping stone for them, allowing them to fly higher and higher. Unexpectedly, Xiaochen defeated them all. This is too inconceivable. First, he eliminated the Holy Land experts and forced them back with 4 palm strikes. Then, he defeated the noble clan heirs. No one can withstand his sharpness. I'm afraid no one in the younger generation is a match for him. Our great Qin nation has always been the weakest among the 5 great nations. This time, we might have produced a demonic genius. After a moment of silence, the crowd in the spectator stands erupted. They were all very excited and discussions could be heard without end. On the other side, Lu Riyue and the others all had sincere smiles on their faces. They quickly headed for Xiaochen. At this moment, only the noble clan elders on the platform had the most heavy moods. If they could not take him down in this battle, this Xiaochen might become a shadow that would haunt them for life. Just thinking about such a talented opponent made them tremble in fear, it made it hard for them to breathe. If one had to say who was the most depressed, it would be Song Quebec. At this moment, he felt incredibly depressed. Originally, he thought that he would definitely die. However, Xiaochen managed to pull through. Furthermore, his reputation became even more famous. No, this brat's strength is already sufficient to threaten me. There is a death grudge between us. He will definitely come back to settle the score with me. Song Kei's expression was uncertain. It was like he was making a difficult decision, he was very hesitant. Forget it if I just kill him. He is currently at his weakest, this is the best opportunity. He is no longer a Heavenly Saber Pavilion disciple. With my status as the peak master, I can definitely avoid the death penalty. Thinking of this, a murderous intent appeared in Song Kei's eyes. He looked at the defenseless Xiaochen, who was walking towards Lu Riyue, and clenched his fist tightly. Die! Song Kei shouted and used his remaining arm as a saber. He carried a sharp killing chi and soared into the air, flying towards Xiaochen at lightning speed. When the smiling Lu Riyue saw Song Kei, her expression immediately changed. She shouted, "Xiaochen, be careful." When Xiaochen felt the killing chi, he wanted to circulate the blue dragon cloud soaring art to dodge. However, he discovered that the essence in his body had already dried up, there was nothing left. He was startled. Bang! Lu Riyue flew over at lightning speed and used her palm to block Song Kei's peak martial king strike for Xiaochen. Pu Ci. There was an insurmountable difference between an inferior grade martial king and a peak martial king. Furthermore, this was a peak strike that Song Kei had stored up power for a long time. Lu Riyue vomited a large mouthful of blood. She felt an intense pain in her chest as she flew backwards. Xiaochen's expression suddenly sank. He quickly caught Lu Riyue and placed his hand on her pulse. He sent a strand of spiritual sense into her and discovered that her heart meridians were shattered. Her life force was rapidly draining away. The sudden turn of events caused everyone present to be in a daze. They had never expected things to turn out like this. Xiaochen, don't be rash, Lu Riyue said weakly as she lay in Xiaochen's embrace. Her complexion was pale. It was like lightning struck Xiaochen's mind. His eyes turned scarlet, and the scarlet throne in his sea of consciousness trembled continuously. Strands of scarlet state of massacre spread out. When Xiaochen turned his head back, he saw that Song Kei was still unwilling to let go. He was rushing towards him, trying to kill him. Seeking death. Xiaochen felt a chill in his heart. Killing chi filled his entire body. The blue dragon tattoo on his right arm started to move quickly. A horrifying energy accumulated continuously. After a while, the vivid tattoo came to life. A realistic blue dragon coiled around Xiaochen's arm. Roar! A dragon roar shook the heavens and earth. The white clouds in the sky were scattered. The holy might of an ancient holy beast spread throughout the drill grounds. Song Kei, who bore the brunt of it, had a drastic change in expression. Chapter 363. Song Ke felt an overwhelming holy might pressing down on him like a small mountain. The martial spirit in his body trembled continuously, and his essence became unstable. He could not even walk properly. Before Song Ke could react, he was struck by the blue dragon. The clothes in front of his chest were torn apart, and a bloody hole the size of a bowl appeared. His body flew back 100 meters. The blue dragon circled around and returned to Xiao Chen's arm. Its luster was dim, leaving only a blurry image. On the platform, the Silent Phoenix's Passion Palace's elder Yan's expression changed greatly when he saw the azure true dragon. He exclaimed in his heart, "Blue dragon martial spirit. How can it be the blue dragon martial spirit?" Xiao Chen took a few steps and arrived before the heavily injured Song Quebec. His eyes were bloodshot as he lifted Song Ke up with a sullen expression. "Song Ke, I have no enmity with you. You are a bona fide peak martial king, yet you have tried to kill me time and time again. I have tolerated you until now, yet you are still unwilling to let me off." Xiao Chen continued to question Song Ke as he grabbed him by the collar. "Don't kill me. I am the Biyun Peak's peak master. If you kill me, you will die as well," Song Ke said with a horrified expression. The fear of death in his heart caused him to give up all his dignity. "Xiao Chen, stop!" The first elder, Jiang Qi, shouted from the platform. No matter what, Song Ke was the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's peak master. He could not die in the hands of an outsider. Xiao Chen could not be bothered with him. He clenched his right hand and punched, turning Song Ke's head into mush. Lu Ruyue's heart meridians were shattered because of him. She had a slim chance of survival. No matter who pleaded on her behalf, Xiao Chen had to kill this person. Hu Qi. A red light flashed on the platform. It flew over at lightning speed and sent a palm strike at Xiao Chen. "Old thing, if you dare to come any closer, I dare you," a delicate voice shouted. Just as Elder Yan's palm strike was about to land on Xiao Chen, a fiery red meteor descended from the sky. Upon closer inspection, one would discover that it was a golden spear with a golden dragon formed from pure golden flames coiling around its body. Sensing danger, Elder Yan immediately stopped what he was doing. When he saw the item clearly, his expression changed drastically. A subdivine weapon, the Grand Sovereign Spear, and a complete dragon flame. "Is the Qin Emperor here? Retreat!" Without any hesitation, Elder Yan's body flickered as he retreated. His speed was inconceivably fast. However, that long spear followed him like a shadow, hot on his heels. Everywhere the spear passed, a visible black hole appeared in space. The dragon flame circling the spear burned fiercely, expanding the black hole rapidly. "My life is over," Elder Yan thought to himself in despair as he looked at the spear that he could not dodge. Dang! Just when he was in complete despair, there was a sudden fluctuation in space. Elder Luo, who was in the reincarnation well, appeared out of thin air with 7 people. Shoving Elder Yan aside, Zhang Xian tapped his finger lightly on the Grand Imperial Spear, which could easily tear through space, and a formless shockwave appeared beneath his feet. Xiao Chen diverted the boundless force of the spear into nothingness, displaying his strong control skills. Ying Yu, who had descended from the sky, stretched out her hand and retrieved the Grand Imperial Spear. "Elder Luo, that person is the inheritor of the Blue Dragon martial spirit," Elder Yan, who had narrowly escaped death, said as he looked at Xiao Chen. Elder Luo waved his hand and said, "I know. There is no need to say anything more. Don't bother yourself with this matter." Boom! 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 The hidden Heavenly Saber Pavilion Supreme Elders all revealed themselves at this moment. Xiao Chen's eyes lit up when he saw Shen Manjun among them. Xiao Chen immediately carried Lu Ruyue and ran over. He said anxiously, "Martial Grand Aunt, please save Ruyue. She is about to die." Shen Manjun sighed gently and said, "I owe you a favor. Furthermore, Lu Ruyue is the son of an old friend. No matter what, I have to save her." When Xiao Chen heard this, his expression relaxed. He said, "Martial Grand Aunt, can she be saved?" With a flip of her palm, Shen Manjun took out a medicinal pill and fed it to Lu Riyue. The medicinal pill melted in her mouth. Soon, Lu Riyue's life force started to recover. She is still in time. This is Jade Maiden Peak's rank 9 medicinal pill for treating injuries. It can protect her from death, Shen Manjun said calmly as she infused a strand of gentle essence into the medicinal pill to speed up its effects. When Lu Riyue and the others heard this, they heaved a sigh of relief. As long as Lu Riyue did not die, it was fine. "Xiao Chen, you killed my Heavenly Saber Pavilion's peak master, Song Quebec. You should be executed according to the sect rules." However, Song Ke attacked a fellow disciple first. That is also a capital offense. Your contributions offset your mistakes. From today onwards, you are not allowed to take half a step into my Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Do you agree? Shen Manjun said softly after Lu Riyue's condition stabilized. Although she was not the sect master, she was the most senior. To a certain extent, her words held more weight than Jiang Qi's. "Idiot, why are you still not agreeing? She is protecting you. Can't you see that the people from the Holy Land are glaring at you?" Just as Xiao Chen was about to retort, Lu Riyue's voice rang out in his mind. He could only nod and say, "I promise Martial Grand Aunt that I will not take half a step into the Heavenly Saber Pavilion in the future." Shen Manjun nodded gently and looked at Elder Luo. "Elder Luo, what do you think?" The Phoenix's Passion Palace's inner core elder scolded Elder Yan, who had sent a voice projection. He smiled gently and said, "Elder Shen is too polite. This is a private matter of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. It has nothing to do with the Phoenix's Passion Palace. I only hope that your young pavilion master will go to the Holy Land as promised." Since Lu Riyue was fine, Xiao Chen relaxed. Just because he did not take half a step into the Heavenly Saber Pavilion did not mean he would not return. When his strength reached a certain level, he would definitely bring Lu Riyue away from this place. He would not forget this promise. After bidding farewell to everyone, Xiao Chen especially thanked Princess Yingyu. Then, he slowly led Bai out. Xiao Chen did not know when he would return after leaving this time. However, he would definitely return. This was because he had to complete the promise. After Xiao Chen was far away, Elder Luo walked over to Yingyu and smiled. "Little girl, you are very similar to your grandfather. You are equally tyrannical. Unfortunately, your strength is far inferior." Yingyu grasped the Grand Imperial Spear tightly and smiled faintly. "Then, do you want to give it a try?" Elder Luo smiled gently, ignoring Yingyu's mockery. "Go back and tell your grandfather that he still lost this time." As Yingyu watched the people of the Phoenix's Passion Palace leave, she thought to herself, as long as Xiao Chen is still around, we have not lost. Following the departure of several important figures, the crowd on the drill ground also left the place. The Holy Land's selection was completely ruined. However, the cultivators who came did not feel any regrets. Witnessing the start of a legend was a form of luck. Not long after, the noble clans on the platform left as well. The previously bustling drill grounds became quiet once more. Even the most glorious and grand occasion would come to an end. Jiang Qi sighed to himself and led the Heavenly Saber Pavilion elders away from this place. However, no one would have guessed that the end of this event was the beginning of the glorious stage of the Tianwu continent. The true curtains had just been drawn. Shihe Province, in a tavern on a desolate road. This was the only road from the Heavenly Saber Pavilion to the Black Dragon River, aside from the Devil Savannah. There were many cultivators coming and going. In this desolate wilderness, the only tavern within 500 kilometers became a good place for many cultivators to stop and rest. The tavern was not big, it did not even have a main floor. It was just a building with a bedroom and kitchen. There were a few tables outside and a simple signboard by the side of the road. However, business was very good. Out of the few tables, only one was empty. The rest were occupied by cultivators on their way. Outside the tavern, there was a white-clothed girl about 14 or 15 years old. She had a pretty face and held a wine gourd in her hand. She smiled at the tavern owner and said, "Boss, fill up my gourd with some wine." The tavern owner was an old man over 50 years old. When he saw the girl's pure face and her charming smile, he immediately became distracted. After a long time, he recovered his wits. He took out a funnel and placed it on the mouth of the gourd. Then, he picked up a ladle from the wine jar and slowly poured the wine. When the girl smelled the fragrant wine, her cute eyes squinted. She smiled and said, "Thank you, boss. Fill up more." The tavern owner smiled and said, "No problem. I guarantee I will fill it up to the brim. This little one has always done business honestly. I will not skimp on weight." However, after filling up the gourd for a while, the tavern owner started muttering to himself, "Why does this small gourd look like it is not full?" When he looked down, he discovered that the gourd was completely filled. There was no sign of it leaking out. At a table at the side, there was a white-clothed youth eating. There was a blue strip of cloth wrapped around his head. He had fair skin and a delicate and handsome appearance. When he saw this scene, his expression changed and he nearly spat out the food in his mouth. He quickly ran over and picked up the gourd. Then, he handed over a piece of gold and said, "Boss, there is no need to fill it up. This gold word is a reward for you." "Thank you, young hero." When the tavern owner saw the gold word, a smile bloomed on his face. However, he still muttered to himself, "Strange, it is such a small gourd. Why is it not full?" The white-clothed youth smiled bitterly to himself, "It would be strange if you could fill it up. This wine gourd is a small spatial magic treasure that I specially refined. It would be more than enough to fill 100-meter wide pool of water, there would be no problem." Needless to say, these two people were naturally Xiao Chen and Bai, who had left the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. After leaving the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, Xiao Chen boarded the silver warship and quickly left the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's territory. He recuperated in a small city for half a month before continuing on his journey. In the current Great Qin nation, aside from two people who could fight with Xiao Chen, there was no one else worthy of him going all out. In the Tianwu continent, there were 5 great nations. Not to mention the strongest, the Great Jin nation, whose spirit veins had not changed much. As for the other 4 nations, the Great Tang nation, Chu nation, Xia nation, and Qin nation, the Great Qin nation was the weakest. The spiritual energy in their nation was also the thinnest. They only had 3 large sections. As for the other 3 nations, each of them had at least 4 or 5 sects that could rival the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. As for the Great Jin nation, it went without saying. Xiao Chen's vision had never been limited to the Great Qin nation. From the very start, he had set his sights on the entire continent. Thus, it was imperative for him to go abroad. The Tianwu continent was vast and boundless. Aside from the 5 great nations, there was also the mysterious and chaotic ancient desolate land, the 100,000 great mountains occupied by the barbarians in the north, and the countless small nations occupied by the ancient races. Chapter 364. Just the continent itself was already boundless, not to mention the countless islands of various sizes in the boundless sea, the ice continent in the extreme north, and the legendary fiery abyss where the sun rose. The world was so big. Many people could not even travel half of it in their entire lives. Perhaps one was a super genius of a nation. However, when one left the nation, one might discover that one was still as insignificant as a speck of dust. Xiao Chen maintained a humble and calm heart. No matter what the outside world said, no matter how talented he was or what his future prospects were, they were all empty in Xiao Chen's eyes. Only the strength that he truly grasped was the most real. He could not allow the words of the outside world to affect his heart. He had to be calm, not worried, not confused, not afraid, not arrogant. "Didn't I tell you not to use this bottle gourd to buy wine? Why don't you listen?" Xiao Chen said as he gently patted Bai's head. Bai lowered her head and said with some grievance, however, the other bottle gourds are really small. They are gone after I take 2 sips. Xiao Chen shook his head helplessly. There was nothing he could do about this girl who loved to drink. He closed the bottle gourd and handed it back to her. He said, "This will not happen again. This time, you are not allowed to drink it before night falls." Bai smiled happily as she received the bottle gourd. Then, she tied it to her waist. She nodded seriously and said, "Bai will not drink it. I promise I will not drink it." After leaving money for the food on the table, Xiao Chen led Bai down the main road. Not long after Xiao Chen left, one of the cultivators at another table said, "That youth earlier seems to be the recently famous white-robed bladesman Xiao Chen. Could he be going there for the treasure as well?" Another person smiled and said, "You are overthinking it. Now, wearing white robes and a blue strip of cloth on his head is already a common attire for bladesmen. I have not seen a bladesman who did not dress like that." Another person smiled and said, "Indeed. Back then, during the battle in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, I did not see any bladesman who did not dress like this. I can only say that Xiao Chen is too famous now. There are too many people following him. Don't overthink it. Maybe I am overthinking things. Recently, I have indeed seen many white-robed bladesmen with blue strips of cloth on their heads. Let's not talk about this anymore. Let's continue on our way after we finish eating," the first person to speak said. On a silver warship in the sky, a strong wind blew against the clouds as it advanced rapidly. Xiao Chen was in the cabin, carefully looking at a map. The map showed the topography of the Shihe River and the coastal areas in detail. Every mountain, river, and town was marked in detail. Beside the large map was a small map that was flashing with spiritual light. It was the treasure map that Xiao Chen had obtained that day. According to Fatso, the location of the treasure was an island overseas. The island was surrounded by churning waves all year round. Martial monarch experts would not be able to enter. That was because the martial sage from back then had changed the laws of heaven and earth outside the island. Even after 1,000 years, the changed laws had not recovered. There would be a period of time every 2 years when the huge waves would be much smaller. This would allow martial kings to enter. Calculating the time, this was the period of time when one could pass through the huge waves. After leaving the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, Xiao Chen did not have a clear destination. Since he had such a treasure map in his hands, he intended to give it a try and see if it was a fortuitous encounter for him. After comparing the map, Xiao Chen muttered, "It looks like the river on the treasure map is really the Black Dragon River in the Shihe province. The sea route marked on the red line should be the route to the island." Bai, who was sitting at the stern, looked at the focused Xiao Chen. Occasionally, she would sneakily remove the bottle gourd at her waist and take a sip. Her face would turn red, looking very alluring. Xiao Chen saw all this clearly with his spiritual sense. However, he could only smile helplessly. He held the treasure map in his hand and studied it for a while. Xiao Chen's hand slowly slid over the treasure map until he reached the island closest to the treasure. This island was called Green Wind Island. It was twice the size of Shihe City. It was a very famous transit island that led to the depths of the boundless sea in the west of the continent. Merchant ships that wanted to go to the boundless sea would stop at this island to resupply before they left. "Bai, stop drinking. We have to go down and take a ship," Xiao Chen said softly after putting away the map. Bai blushed slightly and stood up. She nodded gently and smiled, "I got it." If they wanted to go to Green Wind Island, they would have to take another merchant ship. Controlling the silver warship for such a long distance would be very taxing on their mental and physical strength. Xiao Chen stored Bai in the spirit blood jade and returned the silver warship to his right eye. Then, he quickly descended from the sky. Soon, a small city appeared in his vision. This small city was the end of the desolate road. Because there was a port near the Black Dragon River, although the city was small, it was bustling with activity. There was a huge flow of people. Xiao Chen landed firmly on the ground and paid the entrance fee. Then, he immediately rushed to the port outside the city. There were many large merchant ships anchored at the port. After he heard about a merchant ship preparing to go to the depths of the boundless sea, Xiao Chen immediately rushed over. So, you are going to Green Wind Island. Hand over 100 inferior grade spirit stones. Otherwise, there is no need for further discussion, the person who negotiated with Xiao Chen said indifferently. Strange, why is it so expensive? I remember that I only had to pay some gold to borrow a ship in the past. Now, I actually have to pay 100 inferior grade spirit stones. It was not that Xiao Chen did not have 100 inferior grade spirit stones. However, he did not want to be a spendthrift. So, he prepared to ask another merchant ship. The waiter on the ship smiled and said, "Stop looking." The other merchant ships charge the same price. Even if you walk to the next port, it will still be the same price. There was definitely something wrong with this abnormal situation. Xiao Chen felt suspicious and stopped. He took out 150 inferior grade spirit stones and said, "The remaining 50 are for you. Tell me why the price increased collectively." When the waiter received the extra 50 inferior grade spirit stones, a smile immediately bloomed on his face. He explained, "It is because of the treasure map passed down in the Devil Savannah. I heard that a fatso obtained the treasure map in the Devil Savannah. He took it to the auction house in the ancient desolate land and made a huge profit. Then, he made 1,000 copies of it and sold them. Now, the treasure map has become a common item. The first person who auctioned it became a spendthrift. It is not only our great Qin nation. Many cultivators from the great Tang nation, the great Xia nation, and the great Chu nation all obtained the treasure map. Hence, more people went to the Green Wind Island." Speaking up to this point, Xiao Chen understood what was going on. He smiled to himself, "The treasure map that I treated as a treasure has already become a common item. However, given Fatso's character, he would be able to do something like this. He had suffered too much in the Devil Savannah. If he did not earn some money, he would not stop." When the waiter arrived at the bow of the ship, Xiao Chen immediately felt countless strong auras. He saw 100 cultivators sitting on the deck. Half of them were peak martial saints. The rest were martial kings. Half were medial grade martial kings, and there were a few superior grade martial kings. Xiao Chen carefully scanned the place with his spiritual sense and discovered a peak superior grade martial king. He had hidden his aura and was silently hiding in the crowd. It looked like it was as the waiter said. Everyone knew about the secret of the treasure map. As long as they were strong, they would want to try their luck. Another bladesman who follows Xiao Chen. Why do so many people like to imitate him? Do they think that just because they wear white robes and a blue strip of cloth, they are experts? When the few cultivators saw Xiao Chen boarding the warship, they mocked him with mocking laughter. Xiao Chen looked up and saw many bladesmen on the ship dressed like him. White robes, sabers at their waists, and a blue strip of cloth tied around their heads. Xiao Chen could only selectively ignore the words of those people. In such a situation, Xiao Chen could accept it. At least, he did not have to worry about exposing his identity. Xiao Chen smiled gently and led the waiter to a room in the ship's hold. He said, "Help me prepare a good double room. It would be best if it was a big one. Young hero, this is your first time borrowing a ship, right? We are not a passenger ship but a merchant ship, so," before the waiter could finish speaking, Xiao Chen tossed him 1,000 inferior grade spirit stones. Then, he took out 100 inferior grade spirit stones and said, "The big one is for your leader and the small one is for you." The waiter immediately smiled and said, "Young hero really knows the rules. With spirit stones, everything is easy. A double room, right? I will give you the biggest one. Please wait for a while." Xiao Chen was very clear on whether there were any empty rooms on the merchant ship. However, aside from doing meritorious deeds for the merchant ship, he could only use spirit stones to establish a connection. Inferior grade spirit stones were not very useful for Xiao Chen's cultivation. He could only use them to recover his spiritual energy. Even if he spent them, it would not be a waste. Not long later, the waiter ran back and led Xiao Chen to the second floor of the ship. He found a large guest room for him. "Young hero, if there is anything you need, feel free to instruct me. This little one will be waiting for you." This waiter already treated Xiao Chen as the young master of a big clan. He was still thinking of getting more benefits. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. He knew what the waiter was thinking. He handed over 10 inferior grade spirit stones and said, "You can withdraw first. I will call you if there is anything. Don't disturb me without my instructions." The shop assistant took the spirit stones and left in a joyful mood. After he closed the wooden door, Xiao Chen immediately let out Bai, who had been confined for a long time. The guest room was very big. It was more than enough for 2 people. After Xiao Chen reminded Bai not to run around, he took out a medial grade spirit stone and entered a state of cultivation, preparing to break through to superior grade martial saint at any time. After the consecutive battles at the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, the purple essence liquid in the Qi whirlpool in Xiao Chen's dantian had been stirring restlessly. This was the prelude to a breakthrough. Furthermore, after cultivating for the past few days, the distance between Xiao Chen and superior grade martial king had been shrinking. Once the time was right, he would be able to smoothly advance to superior grade martial saint. The many battles had given Xiao Chen a very clear understanding of his own strength. Xiao Chen's current combat prowess should be between peak medial grade martial king and superior grade martial king. He could defeat medial grade martial kings and hold his own against superior grade martial kings. However, he would not be a match for a peak superior grade martial king. If he ran into a peak superior grade martial king, it would be best to retreat early. Chapter 365. As for those within the martial saint realm, Xiao Chen could be said to be unrivaled. Xiao Chen was even confident of defeating a Holy Land core disciple. This port was in the middle reaches of the Black Dragon River. There was still a long way to go before it reached the estuary. Furthermore, merchant ships could not travel at full speed in the river. Hence, they were not very fast. Xiao Chen did not go out. Every day, aside from eating, he spent all his time cultivating. The spiritual energy in the world below the mountain was very thin. Every 2 days, he would have to expend a medial grade spirit stone. Xiao Chen did not lack medial grade spirit stones. He used more than 30,000 contribution points to exchange for more than 1,000 medial grade spirit stones. In addition to the spirit stones he obtained from selling the demonic cores, he now had more than 9,000 medial grade spirit stones. As long as he could increase his cultivation speed, he would not feel any heartache. 2 months later, the purple Qi whirlpool in Xiao Chen's body suddenly spun quickly. The spiritual energy in the medial grade spirit stone in his hand flowed into his body like a river. Dee-da. Dee-da. The purple essence liquid dripped continuously from the Qi whirlpool. Soon, it filled the interior of the Qi whirlpool. All of Xiao Chen's pores, flesh, and bones felt swollen. After a while, the Qi whirlpool exploded and his dantian turned chaotic. Streams of air gushed out from Xiao Chen's body. Instantly, the air in the entire room surged, forming small tornadoes. An extremely comfortable feeling spread throughout Xiao Chen's body. The essence circulating in his meridians was denser and purer than before. Did I break through? With a thought, Xiao Chen sent his consciousness into his dantian. He saw that the purple Qi whirlpool was twice as large as before. Previously, it could have been filled with purple liquid. Now, it barely filled half of it. Xiao Chen successfully broke through. After more than 4 months, Xiao Chen finally advanced from peak medial grade martial saint to superior grade martial saint. Revealing a faint smile, Xiao Chen circulated the purple thunder divine incantation. The purple essence immediately circulated a small cycle through the 9 major meridians. Then, it started to circulate in the minor meridians around the major meridians. With this advancement, he had opened several dozen new minor meridians. One of them was for cultivating the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 6th layer. The more minor meridians there were, the more essence would circulate in the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 6th layer. An hour later, the purple essence chi finally began to circulate through all the meridians. The essence chi in the 9 main meridians gathered into tiny streams that gathered in the purple chi whirlpool. The chi whirlpool slowly stopped after it was mostly filled. All it needed was a great cycle and it would be. However, Xiaochen did not continue to circulate his energy. He opened his eyes, and 2 beams of purple light flashed in them, radiating sharpness. Elder brother Xiaochen. You have as, Qi. Chen Xiaochen's spirit. Xiaochen waved his hand and sucked in all the flowing purple energy into his body. He stood up and smiled faintly, and, I have not gone out for a month. You must be feeling stifled. After passing through the corridor, the 2 of them arrived at the bow of the ship. At this moment, the sun had just risen. The faint light of the sun cast a golden shadow on the surface of the river. The sky had just brightened. The many cultivators on the deck were walking around the side of the ship. They gathered in groups of 2 or 3 and chatted with each other. After not coming out for more than a month, Xiaochen felt the breeze from the river. His mind relaxed, and his mind felt much better. Xiaochen had not come out for more than a month. When he felt the breeze from the river, his mind relaxed, and his mind felt much better. After traveling for more than a month, a huge tributary suddenly appeared on the river in front. Many merchant ships turned around and sailed into the tributary. After traveling for half a day, a huge tributary suddenly appeared in front of them. Many merchant ships turned around and sailed into the tributary. Xiaochen had seen the map before. He knew that this tributary led to the most chaotic place in the continent, the ancient desolate land. The ancient desolate land was very large, it was about half the size of the Great Qin nation. If one included some desolate and uninhabited places, it would be about the same size as the Great Qin nation. The center of the ancient desolate land was the capital of the Tianwu dynasty. It was once the most glorious city in the continent. Unfortunately, after the dynasty was destroyed, the dragon vein that the Tianwu emperor had laid dormant for 10,000 years was split into 9. The ancient desolate land became an extremely dangerous place. As a result, the spiritual energy of the ancient desolate land was extremely dense. However, no empire moved their capital there. Xiaochen collected his thoughts. Since they were already here, it would not be long before they set sail. Soon, the merchant ship would leave the Tianwu continent and reach the coastal waters. We are about to reach the Thunder King Valley. After we pass the Thunder King Valley, we will leave the Tianwu continent, a cultivator suddenly said. Another companion sighed and said, ever since the Thunder King, there have been no more peak experts in the Great Qin nation. They have really declined. I wonder if there will be someone like the Thunder King after 1,000 years. That bladesman who appeared in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion not long ago might be able to recreate the glory of the Thunder King. He defeated so many noble clan geniuses in one go. He is the only one in the past 100 years to do so. In this era, there are many geniuses. When things reach an extreme, they will move in the opposite direction. The continent that has been silent for 1,000 years will definitely rise again. Even within the Great Qin nation, the geniuses of those noble clans are not weak. There is also Ling Liusu, who became an inferior grade martial king at the age of 17. There is also Chu Chaoyun, who has not revealed his true strength yet. There are also some geniuses from the military who spend most of their time on the battlefield in the imperial capital. They are not inferior to the era of 1,000 years ago. As for the experts of the other nations, there are even more of them. As far as I know, there are at least 100 people who are not weaker than Xiaochen. Furthermore, this does not include the geniuses of the Great Jin nation. Naturally, the geniuses of the Great Jin nation are not included. They are not in the same world as us. How can we compare? We might be able to see these geniuses on the Green Wind Island this time. I heard that the other nations also have treasure maps of the Devil Savannah. Someone on the bow of the warship mentioned the Thunder King. The entire deck immediately became lively. These knowledgeable cultivators started to discuss the geniuses of the various nations. This piqued Xiao Chen's interest. He pricked up his ears and listened attentively. 1,000 years ago, which was the era of the Thunder King, there were many geniuses in the various nations. There were countless capable people. After the destruction of the Tianwu dynasty, the world of cultivators reached its peak. All sorts of dazzling genius cultivators emerged like pearls. The Thunder King rose up like a comet in such an era. He swept through all the geniuses in the world until he became one of the few people who stood at the top of the pyramid of the continent. After the fall of the Thunder King, that glorious era slowly came to an end. The world of cultivators started to decline. There were very few peak experts and the various geniuses were no longer as dazzling as before. However, there seemed to be some signs now. It was like a glorious era was slowly budding. The morning sun had already risen above everyone's heads. The sunlight became unusually intense. A majestic canyon appeared in the distance. Everyone stopped talking as they looked at the canyon in the distance with reverence in their eyes. The canyon was a few thousand meters tall. It stood on both sides of the Black Dragon River. It was like two swords piercing into the sky. Clouds shrouded the peak. When the merchant ship arrived before the canyon, it slowed down. After entering the canyon, the sky immediately turned dark. Everyone on the deck fell silent. Only the sound of splashing waves could be heard on the quiet surface of the river. Everyone even seemed to hold their breath. What's going on? Xiao Chen looked suspiciously at the canyon on both sides. The moment he looked around, he was thoroughly shocked. The canyon towered into the clouds. There was a huge statue of a person carved on it. This person was very lifelike and had a resolute expression. He wore tight robes and had a sword at his waist. He looked at the distant sea. The statue was carved in the canyon's vein. It was a kilometer long and looked like it would soar into the sky. It gave off a majestic aura that could swallow the mountains and rivers. Associating the name of the canyon with the Thunder Emperor Valley, everyone was able to guess the identity of the person carved on the canyon. Rumble. Suddenly, endless thunder roared in the clear sky. When everyone looked up, they saw dark clouds churning in the sky. There seemed to be a vast army moving in them. The aura was overwhelming, and bolts of lightning occasionally tore through the sky. The berserk will of thunder reverberated in the canyon. This made everyone feel a horrifying pressure. It was like the next bolt of lightning would strike them, destroying their soul and dying without a complete corpse. When Bai saw the horrifying lightning in the sky, he seemed to think of the lightning from his tribulation. He paled in fright and hugged Xiao Chen tightly, unwilling to let go. Elder brother Xiao Chen, Bai is so scared. When Xiao Chen felt the trembling Bai in his embrace, he used his hand to cover Bai's mouth. He whispered, "Don't be afraid. Don't make a sound." This was the will of thunder, the purest will of thunder. Even after 1,000 years, it still inspired fear in people, not daring to move. No wonder the cultivators on the deck did not speak after entering the canyon. They were probably afraid of offending this supreme will and getting punished. Xiao Chen looked up at the boundless thunderclouds in the sky. He felt a strange sense of familiarity. The lunar shadow saber at his waist trembled continuously. It seemed very excited, like it would jump out at any moment. Xiao Chen used one hand to press down on the lunar shadow saber, preventing others from noticing anything strange. "Ao Jiao, did you feel it as well?" Xiao Chen thought somewhat sadly. Under this supreme will of thunder, he felt an insurmountable gap between him and the Thunder King. Unexpectedly, a will from 1,000 years ago was still so strong. If he faced the Thunder King, he wondered if he would have the courage to stand up straight. The canyon was very dark. The merchant ship seemed to have traveled for a very long time. When it charged out of the canyon, the sunlight shone on everyone again. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Cold sweat trickled down their backs. When they turned their heads back to look at the deep canyon, they felt a lingering fear. Xiao Chen let go of Bai and said, "Bai, don't be afraid. We are already out." Bai recovered some color on his face. He reluctantly came out of Xiao Chen's embrace and said, "Bai is no longer afraid. Elder brother Xiao Chen's embrace is the safest." Chapter 366. Strange, there are no deaths or injuries this time. This is the first time I've encountered such a situation in Thunder King Valley, an older martial king on the deck said. Another old man continued, "That's right. I also feel that it is a little strange. It seems like the Thunder Emperor Valley is much calmer than usual today. I clearly feel that there is someone resisting this will, but the Thunder Emperor did not send down any punishment." Xiao Chen thought, could it be because of me or Ao Jiao? Some of the young cultivators at the side asked in confusion, "Senior, what is the situation? Can you explain it in detail?" The old man who spoke first said, "This Thunder King Valley is also known as the Valley of Life and Death. Every day, when the merchant ships pass by this valley, there will be cultivators who die or get injured. There are very few exceptions." "Why?" The old man smiled faintly, "Because there will always be some people who will resist this will of thunder unconsciously. In the past, there were strong martial monarchs who tried to steal this will of thunder. However, no matter how strong their cultivation was, there was only one result, death. As long as there is any delusion or resistance, the will of thunder will injure you. If you resist seriously, you will die. No matter how high your cultivation is, you will not be able to change this result. Perhaps only a sage can try." Hearing this, the cultivators on the deck who had resisted this will either accidentally or intentionally felt fear in their hearts. Is the Thunder King really that strong? He has been dead for 1,000 years. Why is this will of thunder not extinguished? Furthermore, it is still so mighty, the young cultivators asked, their interest piqued by the old man's words. The old man stroked his beard and smiled, "There are 7 types of energy in the world. The lightning attribute is the most berserk and has the most tyrannical attack. Cultivating the lightning attribute is also the most difficult. This is because lightning represents the heavenly Tao in the natural world, the power of heavenly punishment. Similarly, the cultivation of the state of thunder and the will of thunder is the most difficult for all cultivators. The Thunder King was able to comprehend the will of thunder into the immortal will of thunder, which is comparable to the heavenly Tao. With such a tyrannical attack power, even the older generation emperors, who are of a higher cultivation level than the Thunder Emperor, would not dare to face him head-on. Fighting with him is equivalent to going through a lightning tribulation. Who would be so bored as to let themselves go through a lightning tribulation?" The old man spoke with fervor and assurance. It was obvious that he had traveled extensively and was knowledgeable. Xiao Chen recounted everything that the Thunder King had done in the various parts of the continent. This made all the cultivators on the deck yearn in their hearts. It was like they were in that glorious era, turning into the Thunder King, killing gods and demons, trampling on all geniuses and reaching the peak of the world. What's up with the statue in the gorge? Such a huge statue, it seems to cover the entire gorge. Without at least 1,000 people, it would be impossible to complete such a large work. However, how did a few thousand people coordinate with each other to carve such a perfect statue? Seeing that someone finally brought the topic to the statue, the old man continued smiling, "If I told you that this statue was formed naturally, would you believe me? How can that be?" The surrounding young cultivators all shook their heads. When the old man heard this, he laughed loudly, "You youngsters have pretty good talent. You are already peak superior grade martial saints at the age of 24 or 25. However, you are still too inexperienced to think about going to the treasure trove." Another old man at the side was a superior grade martial king. He said indifferently, in the future, if you have the opportunity to go to the ancient desolate land and see the statue of the first Tianwu emperor, you will know that these words are true. Indeed, in the end, the youngsters are still too inexperienced. On this trip to the treasure trove, you will definitely meet with experts from other nations. At that time, you might not even be able to keep your lives, another old martial king said. Furthermore, don't think that just because you are dressed up, you are a white-robed bladesman. How childish, someone brought up the same topic again. When the bladesmen in white robes with blue strips of cloth on their heads heard this, they all felt somewhat embarrassed. They did not know how to answer. The topic slowly returned to reality, to the destination of the group. The older generation cultivators all spoke up to discourage these youngsters. Actually, these old men were just reminding the crowd that if they met with experts from other nations, they would not even know how they died if they could not calm down. These old men had good intentions. As for how many of these youngsters would calm down, they did not need to worry. The topics of these old men broadened Xiao Chen's horizons. This was especially so for the Thunder King's deeds. This allowed him to gain a better understanding of this legendary man. However, half of Xiao Chen's attention was on the deck, on the peak superior grade martial king who had hidden his aura. Many cultivators sat on the deck at the bow, quietly comprehending the will of thunder from earlier. These were all lightning-attributed cultivators. The immortal will of thunder that the Thunder King left behind had a strong effect on lightning-attributed cultivators. More or less, it would be of some help. Perhaps, it would allow one's state to advance further, or it would allow one to comprehend the state of thunder. Among the cultivators sitting on the deck, there was an old man in grey robes. He looked very ordinary, he was a typical, ordinary old man. This old man's aura was that of a superior grade martial king. There were many such old men on the bow. It was not strange for someone to be a superior grade martial king at such a young age. However, Xiao Chen could clearly sense that this person was a peak superior grade martial king. He was only one step shy of becoming a half-step martial monarch. He was extremely strong. This person was not a man of few words on the bow, nor did he brag about his past experiences. When he came across a topic that he was interested in, he would make some insipid comments, not attracting the attention of others. If it were not for Xiao Chen's spiritual sense being very sharp, he would not have discovered that this person was a peak martial king expert. This person is extremely dangerous, Xiao Chen kept an eye on him. The dog that bites is never the one that barks the loudest. At this moment, the merchant ship had already left the Tianwu continent. The Thunder King Valley slowly disappeared from everyone's sight. The continent also moved further away from the crowd. At the entrance of the valley, there were still many merchant ships slowly sailing out to sea. Xiao Chen withdrew his gaze and ignored the people on the ship, who were still discussing. He walked straight to the bow and looked out at the sea. All he could see was boundless seawater. The seawater was calm without any ripples, it was a deep blue. Occasionally, a flock of seabirds flew by. At this moment, the sea was very gentle. Before the calm, unruffled sea, one's field of vision was very wide. It broadened one's mind. The huge merchant ship broke through the waves and moved quickly on the sea. Now that they were on the sea, the merchant ship no longer had to worry about anything, it could move at full speed. Xiao Chen muttered, "Is this the boundless sea? It is indeed endless. I'm afraid that even if I spent my entire life, I would not be able to reach the end of this sea. Haha, this is not the boundless sea. This is just the coastal waters of the Tianwu continent. After we pass the Green Wind Island, we will truly reach the edge of the boundless sea. However, that is only the shallow sea. The true deep sea is even further." Suddenly, a drawn-out voice resounded in Xiao Chen's ears. He turned his head and saw the peak martial king that he had been paying attention to. He did not know when he had arrived. Xiao Chen was mildly startled, but his expression did not change. He smiled faintly and said, "Old senior, it looks like you are very knowledgeable. You seem to understand the boundless sea very well. Can you tell this junior about it?" The old man smiled gently and said, I do not dare to address myself as senior. In the world of cultivators, the strong are respected, not by age. This old man is called Wu Shangshuan. If little brother does not mind, you can call me Old Wu. Old Wu, please explain it to this junior. Xiao Qin said softly. He also wanted to know what the situation of the boundless sea was like. So he did not mind chatting a little more. Wu Shangshuan looked at the boundless sea and said sullenly, the boundless sea has a total of 4 directions, the eastern sea, the western sea, the southern sea, and the northern sea. The merchant ship we are on is heading to the western sea. The true boundless sea is divided into the deep sea and the shallow sea. Currently, humans only have control over the shallow sea. As for the deep sea, it is too mysterious. This old man does not know much about it. There are countless islands in each direction of the shallow seas, and there are also countless powerful sections. Apart from the East Sea, the other 3 directions of the shallow seas all have a dominant sect, which is relatively stable. Xiao Qin thought for a while and asked, how strong are the sects in the boundless sea compared to the sects in my great Qin nation? If compared to the western shallow sea, they can barely be considered a second-rate power. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion could be considered a first-rate power in the past. However, now, it can only be considered a second-rate power. If we include the Heavenly Craft Manor, it might be better. Xiao Qin was somewhat surprised. Could it be that the Heavenly Craft Manor is stronger than the Heavenly Saber Pavilion? What do you mean? Ha ha! If you go out more, you will discover that many of the spirit weapons of the cultivators in the continent are made by the Heavenly Craft Manor. Even in the Great Jin Nation, this is very obvious. In terms of fame, the 3 great sects are not as famous as the Heavenly Craft Manor. Think about it carefully. If such a profitable sect does not have a certain level of strength, why did the royal court and the other sects not dare to swallow it up? Xiao Qin had not thought of this unless he had a strong backer. If not, there was only one reason, the Heavenly Craft Manor had its own hidden power. When Wu Shangshuan spoke up to this point, he suddenly paused. He said, White-robed bladesman, for you to be so interested in the boundless sea's powers, aside from going to the Green Wind Island, are you planning to go to the boundless sea as well? Xiao Qin was slightly stunned. He smiled and said, Old Wu must be joking. How am I the white-robed bladesman? I only wear white robes. Stop denying it. You are observing me, but I am observing you as well, Wu Shangshuan said calmly as he looked into the distance. Xiao Qin's heart sank. It looked like this person might have discovered his identity. Otherwise, he would not have come over to talk to him for no reason. Wu Shangshuan continued, there is no need to be nervous. This old man is actually looking for you to discuss the matter of the Savannah King's treasure. I have been to that island twice before. This is my 3rd time. Chapter 367. Wu Shangshuan had actually gone there twice already. This surprised Xiao Qin greatly. For him to be able to escape unscathed twice, this person's strength was probably higher than Xiao Qin had imagined. The first time, this old man obtained 3,000 medial-grade spirit stones, 2 secret treasures, and 2 bottles of rank 7 medicinal pills. The second time, I obtained 5,000 medial-grade spirit stones, 3 secret treasures, and a bottle of rank 8 medicinal pills. That is how I obtained my current cultivation. Xiao Qin smiled faintly and said, in that case, it looks like Old Wu has made ample preparations this time. You should be able to reap a great harvest. Difficult. Wu Shangshuan sighed softly, I wonder which damned fatso spread the treasure map. Now, aside from the cultivators of the Great Jin Nation, the cultivators of the other 4 nations are all rushing over here. Fortuitous encounters were hard to come by. The Savannah King's treasures were undoubtedly a great fortuitous encounter. This was clear from Wu Shangshuan's 2 harvests. Who would not be tempted by such a fortuitous encounter? It would not be strange no matter how many people came. Most or all of the cultivators on the merchant ships behind Xiao Chen were probably here for the Savannah King's treasures. However, looking at Wu Shangshuan's expression, it seemed like there was more to his words. Xiao Chen muttered to himself for a while before saying, "Senior, if you have something to say, just say it." When Wu Shangshuan heard this, he laughed loudly. "You youngsters are really direct. This old man said so much because I want to work together with you to explore the Savannah King's treasures. Working together with Wu Shangshuan would be of great help to Xiao Chen." Wu Shangshuan had been to the island with the treasures twice. He would definitely be more familiar with the island's situation than others. That way, Xiao Chen could save a lot of trouble. However, if Xiao Chen were to work together with a stranger of unknown origins, especially when the other party was stronger than him, the other party would definitely be the leader. If the other party killed him to snatch the treasures, he would be helpless. "Sorry, I am used to being alone. I'm afraid I cannot accept Senior's kind intentions." Hence, no matter how many benefits there were, Xiao Chen would not agree. The risk was too great. Wu Shangshuan promised some more benefits and tried his best to invite Xiao Chen to come along. However, Xiao Chen did not budge. He did not agree no matter what he said. "Ha ha. Since little brother does not agree, then never mind. When we meet again, we will still be friends. This old man will take his leave first," Wu Shangshuan said with a gentle smile. A hard-to-detect venom flashed in his eyes. Xiao Chen's eyes were very sharp, and he easily caught this trace of hatred. This made him even more certain that this venerable Wu was definitely not a good person. However, if he had any tricks up his sleeves, Xiao Chen was not someone to be trifled with. Even if he couldn't kill him, he could still make him suffer. Brother Xiao Chen, that man was so fake. Bai clearly felt his murderous intent, but he was smiling so happily. Bai walked over and said softly. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, "Ignore him. Don't come out for a few days. This person is not easy to deal with." Boom. 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 Just at this moment, the calm sea suddenly surged with violent waves. The waves were 100 meters tall, and the huge merchant ship also started shaking. The sudden situation caused the cultivators on the deck to be astonished. They nearly fell to the ground. What's going on? This is still the coastal waters. There are very few storms in this season. Why are there such large waves? A few cultivators who traveled to the coastal waters all year round asked suspiciously. The ship was still shaking non-stop. However, the cultivators had already recovered their wits. After they circulated their essence, they were barely able to maintain their balance. Xiao Chen's feet seemed to be glued to the deck. The merchant ship shook without moving at all. He supported Bai and quickly extended his spiritual sense into the distance. Now that Xiao Chen's cultivation had increased, his spiritual sense could already cover a radius of 5 kilometers. If he used it in a straight line, he could see the situation 10 kilometers away. Soon, Xiao Chen understood what was going on. 8 kilometers in front, there were 2 huge warships engaged in an intense battle. The ancient demonic energy cannons fired at each other, firing energy shells without regard for the consumption. All sorts of resplendent energy beams interweaved in the air. The aftershocks of the battle created a huge storm. They kicked up huge waves that spread out to the surface of the sea. What a strong aftershock! Unexpectedly, each warship is equipped with hundreds of ancient demonic energy cannons. No wonder the aftershock is still so powerful even after spreading for 5,000 kilometers. Xiao Chen withdrew his spiritual sense and felt slightly astonished. That blue warship seemed to be flying the flag of the Golden Rock Merchant Association. The Golden Rock Merchant Association, isn't that the merchant association of Kim Taeho's clan? The other warship was pure black. There was a black flag on the bow of the ship. There was a ferocious 9-headed dragon embroidered on the flag, bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws. The 2 warships both had circular light shields blocking the energy beams fired at them. They seemed to be equally matched. If this continued, the 2 warships might sink at the same time. Dong! 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 A group of people came out of the ship's hold. They were the captain and the guards of the ship. Clearly, they were startled by the abnormal waves on the sea. The captain of the merchant ship was a middle-aged man. He was tall and had an imposing appearance. He wore yellow robes threaded with golden threads and exuded a vigorous aura. Unexpectedly, he was a superior-grade martial king. There were 8 guards beside the captain. They were all martial kings and were no more than 40 years old. This was the period when one's chi and blood were at their peak. Such a martial king's sharpness was much stronger than the old martial kings on the deck. If they really fought, their essence might not be as dense as the other parties. However, because their chi and blood were abundant, their sharpness was still present. Their chances of victory were higher. The captain looked at the horrifying waves in the distance and frowned slightly. He said to the person beside him, "Lu Sheng, your perception is as strong as a half-step martial monarch. Help me take a look at what's going on." The cultivator called Lu Sheng nodded and walked to the bow of the ship. He closed his eyes and blue ripples of light shot out from his body. The ripples merged into the water and headed into the distance. This person's martial spirit is rather special. Furthermore, he probably comprehended the state of water. That's why his perception is as strong as a half-step martial monarch's, Xiaochen thought to himself. Replying to Captain, it is the Black Dragon Group's 9-headed dragon warship. It is fighting with the Golden Rock Merchant Association's Underworld Wolf warship, Lu Sheng said softly as he opened his eyes. This is the coastal waters. How can there be a Black Dragon Group ship? Are you sure? One of the older martial kings on the deck exclaimed in shock. Lu Sheng walked over and said, "Captain, should we go around?" The captain frowned heavily. He muttered to himself for a while before saying, "Are you sure there are only 2 warships? There are no other merchant ships or passenger ships?" Lu Sheng nodded and said, "I did not see any merchant ships or passenger ships of the Golden Rock Merchant Association within 50 kilometers. There are only 2 warships fighting." The captain's expression relaxed. He said, "In that case, there is no need to care about them. Raise the Merchant Association's flag and continue on our way." The Black Dragon Group normally operates in the shallow seas of the 4 directions. Why are they in the coastal waters this time? This is really puzzling. The Golden Rock Merchant Association's warship is here as well. Don't they usually operate in the shallow seas of the north? Why are they in the west? Could it be that these 2 clans are here for the treasure left behind by the Savannah King? If that is the case, our chances will be much smaller. When the many cultivators on the deck thought of this possibility, their expressions all changed. The Savannah King's treasure had already attracted many cultivators from the 4 great nations. Now that the Golden Rock Merchant Association and the Black Dragon Group were here, their chances of obtaining a fortuitous encounter would be even smaller. Wu Shangshuan's expression turned extremely unsightly. He glanced at Xiao Chen, and a strange light flickered in his eyes. It was like a venomous snake flicking its tongue. The merchant ship raised its flag and continued moving forward. After 2 hours, they neared the center of the battle. The waves on the surface of the sea surged even more violently. The waves they kicked up were more than 200 meters tall. They looked very horrifying. Resplendent beams of light shot across the surface of the sea, creating a screen of water that supported the sky. This made the surging sea even more chaotic. How wasteful is this? One shot from the ancient demonic energy cannon would exhaust 1,000 inferior-grade spirit stones. It looks like spirit stones are no longer valuable, a cultivator on the deck sighed. Seeing the merchant ship raise its flag, the 2 warships ceased fire at the same time. The waves on the surface of the sea surged for a long time before slowly coming to a stop. The merchant ship passed between the 2 warships very calmly. There were no waves at all. This is really strange. The firepower of the merchant ship is clearly not as strong as that of the warship. Unexpectedly, it can pass so calmly, Xiaochen thought suspiciously. It could be because of some rules of the sea. For example, warships could not fire at merchant ships. Otherwise, they would be breaking the rules and would be attacked by all powers. Xiao Chen, over here. Just as Xiao Chen was thinking, a pleasantly surprised voice came from above. He looked up and saw Fatso waving at him from the 200-meter-tall bow of the underworld river warship. Xiao Chen hesitated for a while before saying to Bai, "Come, let's go up." The two of them pushed off the bow of the ship and flew up to the bow of the underworld river warship before the shocked gazes of the many cultivators on the deck. Earlier, Kim Tae-ho, what did he call him? If I did not hear wrong, it was Xiao Chen, right? It should be true. I did not expect this person to be the white-robed bladesman Xiao Chen. He is too low profile. It's over. I actually mocked him earlier for pretending to be the white-robed bladesman. I have embarrassed myself greatly. When the people below verified Xiao Chen's identity, they all started discussing fervently. They had not expected the legendary bladesman of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion to actually appear before them. When Wu Shangshuan saw Xiao Chen fly up to the underworld river warship, a deep sense of disappointment flashed in his eyes. He muttered, "How unfortunate. I was originally planning to make a move tonight. This brat is wearing 3 secret treasures. If I could get my hands on him, I would definitely gain a lot. However, as long as he goes to Qianren Island, he will still have a chance." It is not that easy to obtain the Savannah King's treasure. The merchant ship slowly moved further away. Wu Shangshuan stared at Xiao Chen's back. The greed in his eyes slowly faded away. "Ha ha! White-robed bladesman Xiao Chen, now that you are famous, your deeds have spread throughout my great Tang nation. This fat brother will probably have to follow you in the future," Kim Tae-ho said with a smile as he patted Xiao Chen's shoulder. Xiao Chen felt his shoulder sink. He felt ashamed in his heart. Now that he had cultivated dragon tendon tiger bone, even without using any strength, he could withstand a blow of more than 500 kilograms. Chapter 368. However, Fatso's palm strike still made him feel heavy. It was easy to imagine how much force this fellow had used. "There is no need to be so exaggerated," Xiao Chen smiled, feeling somewhat speechless. Kim Tae-ho laughed and said, "Aren't I missing my brother? Duan Muking, Ji Changkong, and the others are quite famous in the Great Tang Nation. In the previous 5-nation youth competition, these people all qualified for the second round." Xiao Chen had heard of the 5-nation youth competition before. It was a youth competition that was held every 3 years in the Great Jin Nation. However, very few people from the Great Qin Nation had entered the top 100 in the past few 5-nation youth competitions. Hence, there was very little news about the competition in the Great Qin Nation. After all, such disgraceful results were announced with great fanfare. It was like slapping their own faces. "That's right, who is this beauty? Why don't you introduce her to this fat lord?" Fatso's eyes lit up when he saw Bai behind Xiao Chen. Bai looked at Kim Tae-ho and smiled gently, "I know you. You are Kim Tae-ho." Kim Tae-ho felt it was strange, "How do you know me? I don't think we have met before." "Bai has met you before. The first time we met, you took a sculpture that elder brother Xiao Chen gave you." Bai wanted to continue, but Xiao Chen quickly stopped her. If she continued, Kim Tae-ho's scandal would be exposed. When Kim Tae-ho heard Bai's words, an incredulous look flashed in his eyes. He muttered, "Brother Xiao Chen, I'll tell you in the future. I can't explain everything in such a short time." Xiao Chen did not want to speak too much about Bai's matters. Kim Tae-ho observed his expression and smiled, It's fine. I'll bring you to meet someone first. Miss Bai, come along as well." As Kim Tae-ho walked into the cabin and walked all the way to the top floor, Xiao Chen took the opportunity to ask, "What's going on with this ship and the Black Dragon Triad's warship?" Kim Tae-ho smiled casually and said, "It's fine. Recently, the Chamber of Commerce has been fighting for some maritime trade routes in the West. We have not reached an agreement with the Black Dragon Group on the key issues. let's fight a few battles first. Otherwise, no one will give in. However, since I have seen you, there is no need to fight today. Indeed, with different cultivation realms, one's perspective on problems was different. The cultivators on the deck were extremely nervous about the battle between the Black Dragon Group and the Golden Rock Merchant Association. They said all sorts of things. However, when it came from the mouth of the person involved, there was no smell of gunpowder at all. It seemed incomparably casual, just like a fight between children. Ding ding ding. Melodious zither music came from the top floor. The zither music was very pleasing to the ears. It was like a puddle of clear water splashing down beside one's ears, complementing the melodious tune. It made one feel relaxed and peaceful. Xiaochen had a guess as to who Fatso wanted to bring him to meet. Xiaochen pushed open the doors to the top floor. Indeed, as Xiaochen expected, it was Su Xiaoxiao on the elegant top floor, playing the zither with a calm expression. After Su Xiaoxiao finished playing, she picked up her zither and walked over. She smiled gently and said, "Young Master Xiao, it has been a long time." Indeed, it had been a long time. Since they parted at Whitewater City, it had been a year since Xiaochen last saw Su Xiaoxiao. Xiaochen smiled faintly and said, "Miss Xiaoxiao's zither music is still as pleasant as before. It is just an elegant thing." "I have embarrassed myself in front of young Master Xiao," Su Xiaoxiao said softly. Kim Taeho led the group to the dining table in the room. He instructed for some food and wine to be prepared. Then, they started chatting as they drank. After chatting for a while, Su Xiaoxiao looked at Bai and could not help asking, "Who is this lady?" Xiaochen thought for a while and said, "This is my younger sister. You can just call her Bai." In the future, when he met people he knew, Xiaochen intended to introduce them like this to avoid unnecessary trouble. Bai took a sip of wine and said happily, "Bai greets elder sister Xiaoxiao. Bai also likes listening to elder sister Xiaoxiao play the zither." Bai was innocent and lively. Her voice was melodious and cute. The moment she spoke, she made Su Xiaoxiao laugh. "Ha ha. In the future, if you have any ideas, elder sister can teach you." Su Xiaoxiao smiled gently as she looked at Bai. Bai said excitedly, "Thank you, elder sister." The group casually talked about their encounters. After that, Su Xiaoxiao asked, "Young Master Xiao, you probably came to the Green Wind Island for the Savannah King's treasure, right?" Xiaochen nodded and said, "Yes, I am just trying my luck. I want to see if I have any fortuitous encounters." "What about after that?" Su Xiaoxiao continued to ask. Xiaochen thought for a while and smiled gently, "After that, I will go back to the various nations to temper myself. One cannot be a frog in a well. I have to go out and explore. If there is an opportunity, I hope to travel the entire Tianwu continent and see the geniuses and outstanding talents of various places." There was still something he did not say in his heart. That was to defeat all these geniuses one by one and never stop on the path to the peak. When Su Xiaoxiao heard this, she was not surprised. She said, "This time, for the sake of the Savannah King's treasure, many of the young talents of the various nations have come to the Green Wind Island. They are holding a small gathering on the island. If you want to go, I can be the middleman." Xiao Chen's heart skipped a beat. The Great Qin nation was the weakest of the four great nations. There were only 3 great sects in the nation. Compared to the other great nations, the Great Qin nation was far inferior. Xiao Chen's purpose in coming out was to see the world. Su Xiaoxiao's suggestion moved him. "However, before you agree, you have to be mentally prepared. These people are all arrogant and unruly. Their temperaments are very high. It is hard to avoid a clash of words." Su Xiaoxiao reminded Xiao Chen when she saw that he was tempted. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, "No problem, I can understand." It was hard for youths to avoid showing off their abilities. This was especially so for these geniuses with higher talent. Most of them thought highly of themselves. Since Xiaochen started out, he had seen a lot of such people. He completely understood Su Xiaoxiao's words. However, he was no longer that impatient youth of the past. Now, he was still as sharp as before. It was just that he was much more reserved. His 1 year in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion had matured his mental state. From Xiaochen's eyes, Su Xiaoxiao could tell that Xiaochen had matured a lot. So she did not say anything more. Kim Tae-ho, who was at the side, said seriously, "Xiaochen, the sex of the other 4 nations are very competitive. The competition is much stronger than in the Great Qin nation. Even if your talent is the same, the environment you are in is different. Your cultivation is on a different level. In this small gathering, there are 5 people who are not weaker than you." The host of the gathering, Jin Wuji, is one of the top 100 contestants of the previous 4-nation youth competition. Xiaochen understood what Kim Tae-ho meant. He was reminding him not to be careless. Otherwise, he might end up suffering a huge setback. Actually, there was no need for Kim Tae-ho to say it. Xiaochen already knew that the world was very big. Especially in this era, there were as many geniuses as there were beasts. The battle at the Heavenly Saber Pavilion had solidified Xiaochen's confidence, making him sharper. However, he had never been arrogant to the point that he was undefeatable and looked down on the heroes of the world. After the meal, under the strong request of the 3, Su Xiaoxiao played a few more tunes for the crowd. Su Xiaoxiao's tunes were ethereal and lively. One would never get tired of listening to them. They could clearly feel the state of the tunes. Sometimes it was the peak of a green mountain, sometimes it was a small bridge with flowing water, sometimes it was a cool breeze, and sometimes it was a powerful army with lofty aspirations. The various states changed naturally and smoothly, without any stiffness. After Su Xiaoxiao finished playing a few tunes, the beautiful tunes still lingered in everyone's ears, lingering for a long time. When Bai heard this, he immediately pestered Su Xiaoxiao, wanting her to teach him how to play the zither. Su Xiaoxiao liked Bai a lot, so she immediately expressed that she wanted to take her in as a disciple. Little White kept calling Su Xiaoxiao master, which made Su Xiaoxiao giggle from time to time. Kim Tae-ho pulled Xiaochen to the balcony of the top floor. As the sea breeze blew, he took out a bag of spirit stones and handed it to Xiaochen. He said, 1,000 medial-grade spirit stones. Consider it the compensation for saving this fat lord the other time. Xiaochen frowned slightly. He revealed an expression of disbelief. Since when did Fatso become so generous? I feel depressed. Old brother Xiaochen, can you not show such an expression? Do I look like such a petty person? It is just 1,000 medial-grade spirit stones, Kim Tae-ho said, feeling extremely speechless. Xiaochen said indifferently, don't say I look like you. You are one in the first place. However, I still want these spirit stones. Although Fatso said it very generously, when he handed over the spirit stones, the fat on his face could not help but twitch a few times, revealing the pain in his heart. Xiaochen smiled gently and placed the spirit stones in his universe ring. He said, let me ask you something. What is this Su Xiaoxiao's identity? She seems to be very capable. She can casually invite people to this gathering of the outstanding talents of the 4 nations. According to what Kim Tae-ho said, the level of this gathering was not low. Furthermore, the host was one of the top 100 participants of the previous 5-nation youth competition. If an ordinary person wanted to join such a small gathering, they would not be able to do so without a certain status and identity. As the sea breeze blew, Kim Tae-ho smiled gently and said, there is no harm in telling you. Her true identity is the young manor lord of the Heavenly Craft Manor. She is the successor on the surface. The young manor lord of the Heavenly Craft Manor. No wonder. Wu Shengxuan once said that the influence of the Heavenly Craft Manor in the continent was much stronger than that of the 3 great sections. With the identity of the young manor lord, it would be easy for her to get to know the outstanding talents of the various nations. Kim Tae-ho smiled and said, don't overthink. Just make your preparations. The warship is twice as fast as the merchant ship. We will reach the Green Wind Island in 3 days. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The sea was calm and peaceful. Due to some reasons, the Jin clan's warship could not dock at the Green Wind Island's harbor. The four took a small boat and headed for the Green Wind Island's harbor. The Green Wind Island's harbor was livelier than any harbor that Xiaochen had seen before. Large merchant ships from the various nations filled the area. The small boat that the four were on was like an ant traveling through a giant statue. It was very insignificant. After they reached the shore, Su Xiaoxiao said, "The gathering should start at noon. Let's enter the city quickly and not waste time." Before Su Xiaoxiao and Lu Shengxuan's astonished gazes, a silver warship shot out from Xiao Chen's eyes. He said softly, "If we are in a rush, then use this secret treasure of mine." The silver warship expanded according to Xiao Chen's will. Then, it soared into the sky with a "so" sound, flying quickly through the clouds. Fatso stood on the bow of the warship and shouted, "Damn! Xiao Chen, the flying formations on this warship are actually intact. We can fly without using spirit stones. Are you selling this secret treasure? I will buy it no matter how much it costs." Chapter 369. Xiao Chen said indifferently, "Don't even think about it. Even if I gave it to you, you would not be able to use it. You need the corresponding method to control this secret treasure." Xiao Chen had managed to completely control the silver warship after he destroyed the ancient spiritual sense in it. He had also spent a lot of effort to repair it. How could he sell it to others? Soon, the silhouette of a city twice the size of Shiha City appeared in Xiao Chen's vision. Xiao Chen slowed down and slowly landed outside the city. Only an hour had passed, there was still some time before noon. Under Su Xiaoxiao's lead, the group entered the city and immediately headed for the most bustling restaurant in the city. Just as they arrived at the entrance of the restaurant, a waiter compared the portrait. He immediately came before Su Xiaoxiao and said with a smile, "Miss Xiaoxiao, right? Young Master Jean has already reserved the entire 4th floor. He has been waiting for you for a long time. Please come with me." The interior of the restaurant was very spacious, it was more than 200 square meters. However, the hall on the 1st floor was packed with people, it was very bustling. The 2nd and 3rd floors were also filled with people. There were practically no empty tables on the tables. The entire hall was filled with all sorts of shouts and discussions. The situation only became better when they reached the 3rd floor. The 3rd floor was filled with private rooms and pavilions. Those who could come up here were not ordinary people. However, there were practically no empty rooms. The Savannah King's treasure actually attracted so many cultivators. This is rather surprising. The person who started all this, Fatso, laughed shamelessly. The waiter leading the way laughed as well. "Indeed, it is all thanks to that damned Fatso, who publicized the treasure map. This Fatso is now hated by everyone. However, our restaurant has to thank him. Since last month, our business has been booming." Hearing this, Xiao Chen and Su Xiaoxiao both laughed gently. Fatso's expression immediately became conflicted, his smile completely froze. Seeing that Jean de Bao's expression wasn't right, the waiter hurriedly said, "Sir, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about that damned fatty who sold the treasure map. You can't be called fat, you're completely noble and dignified. That damned fatty can't compare to you." When she heard this, even the reserved Su Xiaoxiao could not help but laugh out loud. "You can go down first. We will go up ourselves." Afraid that the fat man would not be able to suppress his anger, Su Xiaoxiao quickly sent the waiter, who was about to say something else, away. Kim Taeho felt very depressed. However, the waiter had already gone far away. Furthermore, the waiter had only said something nice. Even if he wanted to get angry, he could not find a reason. This kind of conflicted and depressed expression, every time one looked at it, one could not help but laugh. The few of them went up to the fourth floor. Compared to the third floor, this floor was very quiet. There was no noise at all. The tables in the middle of the large space were all cleared out, creating a large empty space. There were many tables placed against the walls of the restaurant. Cultivators of various nations sat at the tables, discussing matters of martial cultivation. Xiao Chen looked around and saw about 100 people. Most of them were inferior-grade martial kings. Although a few of them had not become martial kings, their auras were very strong. However, Xiao Chen's aura was extremely strong. Clearly, he had been stuck at peak superior-grade martial saint for a long time. Now, he was only a step shy of advancing to martial king. These people were all over the age of 20. Compared to Leng Liusu, they were much weaker. However, to be able to become martial kings before the age of 25, they were worthy of being called geniuses. This was especially so for the youth sitting in the middle. He was handsome and had a deep gaze. His aura was like a ferocious tiger or wolf. Just by sitting there quietly, he gave off a faint pressure. This youth was already a peak inferior grade martial king. He was also the only one among the 100 people to do so. The increase in strength of a martial king by a grade was even more obvious than that of a martial saint. Without a high-ranked martial technique or a strong state, it would be very difficult to challenge an opponent of a higher cultivation realm. If Xiao Chen guessed correctly, this person should be the one that Kim Tae-ho mentioned. He was one of the top 100 contestants of the previous 5-nation youth competition, Jin Wuji. As Xiao Chen sized up the crowd, countless gazes fell on Xiao Chen as well. However, when they saw that he was only a superior-grade martial saint, disdain flashed in their eyes. Disdain flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes, and he quickly shifted his gaze away. However, his gaze lingered on Xiao Bai for a long time. A few of them did not even bother to hide their possessive gazes. Ha ha! I thought that Miss Xiao Xiao would not be coming. Brother Jean is here as well. Who are these two behind you? When Jin Wuji saw Su Xiao Xiao and the others arrive, he immediately stood up and walked over. Su Xiao Xiao smiled gently and said, "These are two of my friends from the great Qin nation. I apologize for not informing young Master Jin beforehand." Jin Wuji smiled casually and said, "What are you saying? Miss Xiao Xiao's friends are my friends as well. Please, take a seat. Later, when another person arrives, the gathering will officially begin." Su Xiao Xiao looked around the hall and asked suspiciously, "Who else is not here yet?" Jin Wuji smiled mysteriously and said, "Let's keep it a secret first. We will know when she arrives. She is a major character. However, she just happened to be passing by. Brother Jin, don't keep us guessing. Tell us." Indeed, indeed. Who exactly is this major character for Brother Jin to treat them like this? Tell us about it. Jin Wuji was the first disciple of the great Chu nation's Heavenly Sword Gate. The Heavenly Sword Gate had a few supreme elders who were martial sages. In the entire continent, the Heavenly Sword Gate was a first-rate sect. Furthermore, it was ranked rather high. Jin Wuji's status was already very high. Otherwise, he would not have such prestige, able to gather so many geniuses of the various nations. Even Jin Wuji had to show some respect to this person. It was easy to imagine what kind of person this person was. This person was definitely a major character. This piqued everyone's curiosity. Just at this moment, a strong aura suddenly surged in the direction of the restaurant. Everyone was startled and looked out the window. Jin Wuji's face lit up in joy. He said softly, "She is here." Who? A nimble figure floated in from a window on the fourth floor. It was a pretty woman with a curvaceous figure and a smile like the morning sun. She was wearing a green robe and flew in from the window. After the azure-robed girl landed, she withdrew her strong aura. She had an apologetic smile on her face. She looked around and said softly, "Yu Chenxi apologizes to everyone. Something cropped up, so I am late." Unexpectedly, it was Yu Chenxi. When everyone on the fourth floor heard this, they revealed astonished expressions. This was really a major character. In the previous five-nation youth competition, Yu Chenxi was one of the top 50 contestants, ranked 36th. Going from the top 100 to the top 50 was a hurdle. Going from the top 50 to the top 10 was another hurdle. Every hurdle represented a qualitative difference in combat prowess. The most important thing was that in the previous five-nation youth competition, Yu Chenxi was only 16 years old. At the age of 16, he was already an inferior grade martial king. Furthermore, he managed to make it into the top 50. With such talent and strength, he could be described as a demonic genius. Furthermore, the Supreme Sky Sect, which Jin Wuji belonged to, was one of the 10 great sects of the Great Jin Nation. Among the first-rate sects of the continent, the Supreme Sky Sect was a true peak power. There were more than 10 martial sage supreme elders in the sect. With such horrifying talent, the nurturing of a first-rate sect, and the rich spiritual energy of the Great Jin Nation, Yu Chenxi's future was foreseeable. She was like a rising star. When Jin Wuji saw Yu Chenxi arrive, he heaved a sigh of relief. He had thought that she would not be coming. He smiled and said, "Miss Yu, it is not noon yet. You are not late. We are just early." "Indeed, Miss Yu, there is no need to mind. We have not been here for long." When Yu Chenxi arrived, she immediately became the focus of everyone's attention. No one cared that she was late. Jin Wuji invited Yu Chenxi to a table in the center. After Yu Chenxi was seated, he stood up and said softly, "I believe everyone came to the Green Wind Island this time for the treasures left behind by the Savannah King. I am indebted to everyone's generosity for attending this gathering. There are two purposes for this gathering. One is to avoid a life-or-death situation during the fight for the treasures. This is to let everyone familiarize themselves with each other first. When the time comes, everyone will obtain what they need based on their own abilities. We will make a gentleman's agreement that we will absolutely not do despicable things like sneak attacks or sneak attacks. Normally, everyone is from different sects of different nations. Normally, it is very difficult to get together. Today, everyone should take this opportunity to exchange pointers with each other and improve together, obtaining what we need. This is the second purpose of this gathering." Xiaochen felt that this first purpose was not very realistic. Not to mention the people who came, there were also many experts who did not participate in this gathering. Even if everyone here made a gentleman's agreement, Xiaochen did not believe that anyone would care about a gentleman's agreement when the real treasures appeared. However, he believed that everyone would still put on a show on the surface. One thing was different in front of others. I, Lu Meng, support Brother Jin's suggestion. I can make a gentleman's agreement first. If anyone here finds a treasure first, Lu Meng, guarantee that I will not make a sneak attack, a stout cultivator carrying a large saber on his back said first. I, Wang Hao, also support Brother Jin's suggestion. I am willing to make a gentleman's agreement. I, Li Yu, also support Brother Jin's suggestion. I am willing to make a gentleman's agreement. As Xiaochen expected, the cultivators on the fourth floor all expressed their support for Jin Wuji's suggestion. Soon, everyone had expressed their stance. Only the 4 people at Xiaochen's table remained. Everyone's gazes were focused on Xiaochen. Kim Taeho and Su Xiaoxiao had special statuses, they could be ignored. Based on Bai's aura, he seemed to have just advanced to martial saint. His weak strength could be ignored as well. The one they truly needed to pay attention to was Xiaochen. He was a superior grade martial saint and had a strong aura. It was sufficient for him to break through the weakened waves of Qianren Island. After a long period of silence, Xiaochen did not say anything. He could not be so hypocritical. Just ignore him. There are no experts in the Great Qin nation. He is just a mere superior grade martial saint, yet he is here to join in the fun. It does not matter if he makes a gentleman's agreement or not. Chapter 370. That's right. I think he does not even have the ability to break through the huge waves. He cannot even reach Qianren Island. What is the point of making a gentleman's agreement? However, perhaps he is self-aware and knows that he is weak. That's why he is embarrassed to speak. Seeing that Xiaochen did not speak, some of the cultivators who found him an eyesore all mocked him. If not for giving Su Xiaoxiao face, they would have said even worse things. This was the reality of the Tianwu continent. Without strong strength, no matter where one went, one would not gain the respect of others. Xiaochen's expression did not change. He did not care about these words. He grasped his lunar shadow saber tightly and stopped Kim Tae-ho and Su Xiaoxiao, who wanted to speak up for him. The best way to refute was to use the saber in one's hand to prove it. No matter how loud one's words were, it would not be as direct as using the saber. Jin Wuji was upset that Xiaochen did not make a gentleman's agreement. So many people already agreed, but you, an expert from the great Qin nation, did not. It was clear that Xiaochen was not giving Jin Wuji any face. However, the other party was Su Xiaoxiao's friend. It was not good for Jin Wuji to be too obvious. A smile appeared on Jin Wuji's face again. He said in a clear voice, "Since everyone has made a gentleman's agreement, then let's not waste any more time. Let's start the exchange. Everyone should stop when necessary. We will compete one at a time. After that, the others can give their comments. This way, everyone will be able to gain some comprehension." Right after Jin Wuji spoke, two people immediately walked to the empty space on the floor. The empty space where the tables had been moved was very large. If it was just an ordinary exchange, it was more than enough space. The two of you, remember to stop when necessary. Don't damage the harmony. Jin Wuji was the host and also half a referee. When he saw people exchanging pointers, he reminded them not to damage the harmony. Ha ha. Brother Jin, don't worry. I, Lu Meng, know my limits. I will definitely not injure Brother Zhou. Brother Jin, don't worry. I will only use 50% of my strength at most. The two people who came out had gentle smiles on their faces. Their tones were calm, but their words were very hostile. They were competing with each other, not giving way. Jin Wuji frowned slightly and sat down beside Yu Chenxi again. He said, "Let's begin." Boom. Right after they spoke, the two of them each attacked. Their fists and legs collided in the air. The resulting shockwaves dispersed and both of them were forced back by 10 meters. A moment later, they quickly rushed forward and started fighting fiercely. One of them had a fiery red pillar of light flowing around his body, while the other had a formless wind energy flowing around him. Of the two of them, one had comprehended the concept of fire, while the other had comprehended the concept of wind. Moreover, looking at the situation on the stage, both of them had high attainments. After exchanging over 100 punches and kicks, the two of them were equally matched. Both of them retreated, and this time, they finally got serious. Lu Meng took out the big saber on his back. The saber was 3 inches wide and 6 feet long. It was a fierce and thick saber. With a thought, the saber's body was immediately covered in a fiery red flame. The cultivator with the surname Zhou flipped his palms and took out 2 swords from his spatial ring. He held them tightly in his hands. Unexpectedly, he was using the rarely seen dual sword style. The sword was 1.5 feet long and 2 fingers wide. Its blade was completely snow-white and flickered with a cold light. Tiny whirlwinds would flow out from the blade from time to time. Bang! 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 The two of them roared ferociously and charged at each other. The cultivator with the surname Zhou used the special speed advantage of the state of wind to surround Lu Meng. The 2 swords danced around. Sword images flew around, forming a light screen that encased Lu Meng. The cultivator with the surname Zhou was very fast. In addition to the advantage of the dual sword style, Lu Meng was suppressed to the point where he could only occasionally counterattack. Although Lu Meng did not attack much and spent most of his time dodging, every time it looked like he was about to lose, he would make a move and destroy the killing move that his opponent had prepared. Thus, the two of them were unable to do anything to each other. Just from the looks of it, the cultivator with the surname Zhou had a big advantage. This was because Lu Meng could not keep up with his speed. Kim Tae-ho introduced from the side. These two people entered the second round of the previous five-nation youth competition. The one with the saber is called Lu Meng and the one with the two swords is called Zhou Lingheng. In their respective nations, they can be considered top-notch experts. They are now inferior grade martial kings. In the Great Qin nation, their talent should be about the same as Ji Changkong and the others. However, the competition in their nation is more intense than in the Great Qin nation. Thus, they are stronger than Ji Changkong. Xiao Qin nodded, agreeing with Kim Tae-ho's opinion. These two people had comprehended their states to great perfection. They were still a long way from consummation. However, it was not easy for them to reach this stage with their current cultivation. Who do you think will win? Kim Tae-ho asked as he watched the two of them fighting. Xiao Qin thought for a while before saying, Lu Meng. His comprehension of the state of fire is deeper. He already has something of his own in it. Every time he makes a move, he can instantly scatter the advantage that his opponent has accumulated over countless moves. As for Zhou Lingheng, he has only used the speed of the concept of wind. He doesn't have any personal comprehension at all. I guess that his comprehension of the concept is very likely to have been personally guided by a great teacher and not something he comprehended himself. The state of wind was not only about speed. Back then, when Xiao Qin fought with Murong Chong, he understood this. Nimble, faintly discernible, formless, casual, and ostentatious were the characteristics of the state of wind. When Yu Chenxi, who was beside Jin Wuji, heard this, a strange look flashed in his eyes. He looked suspiciously at Xiao Qin. As far as he knew, Zhou Lingheng's state had indeed been personally guided by his master. You are just an insignificant superior grade martial saint. Since when are you qualified to comment on a battle between martial kings? How do you know that Zhou Lingheng is going to lose? If you do not understand, then don't spout nonsense. Don't cut your own tongue. When a cultivator who was on good terms with Zhou Lingheng heard Xiao Qin say that Zhou Lingheng was going to lose, he immediately retorted loudly. Another person at the side added, that's right. Zhou Lingheng is suppressing Lu Meng. Even his ability to retaliate is limited. How can he be defeated? Young Master Jin did not invite you to this gathering. If you come uninvited, then don't spout nonsense. Just watch carefully. Wait until you are a martial king before you speak. Kim Tae-ho was flustered. Just as he was about to scold them, Shaoli stopped him and said indifferently, Zhou Lingheng will lose within 3 moves. Don't bother with what they say. They were just a bunch of clowns. Xiao Qin could not be bothered with them. When the truth came out, he would slap them in the face. Ignorant. How can Lu Meng win within 3 moves? Zhou Lingheng is suppressing Lu Meng. It is difficult for him to retaliate. How can he be defeated? Furthermore, he is defeated within 3 moves. Ignorant brat, he only knows how to spout nonsense. This person has probably stayed in the Great Qin nation for too long. He does not know how high the sky is or how deep the earth is. Does he really think that after leaving the Great Qin nation, he can still be an outstanding talent like before? The Great Qin nation is the weakest of the 5 nations. To think that he is not embarrassed to voice his opinion here. The battle in the arena continued. The discussions outside did not cause any distractions. If an expert of this cultivation realm could be so easily influenced by the environment, then he could not be called a genius. Zhou Lingheng brandished his 2 swords with a hong-hong sound. Sword winds blew and a strong wind blew. He suppressed Lu Meng once again, and his aura rose continuously. When Lu Meng's aura was about to reach its peak, Zhou Lingheng's eyes narrowed. He held his 2 swords together, preparing to execute a killing move to end the battle. Dang! However, just at this moment, Lu Meng suddenly made his move. Once again, when Zhou Lingheng's aura was at its peak, he used a surging saber chi to force Zhou Lingheng's killing move back. This was already the third time. Lu Meng had broken Zhou Lingheng's killing move 3 times in advance. Furthermore, every time Lu Meng's aura reached its peak, it would fall back to the bottom. Jin Wuji and Yu Chenxi, who were in the arena, shook their heads at the same time. As the saying goes, things do not happen more than 3 times. If Zhou Lingheng did not succeed after 3 times, then he would not have any chance of victory. Zhou Lingheng was going to lose. Damn it, he actually broke it again. Zhou Lingheng felt a sense of irritation in his heart. However, he did not care too much. Lu Meng could not catch up to his speed. He could still accumulate his aura again. Boom! Just as Zhou Lingheng was preparing to regroup, Lu Meng suddenly laughed maniacally. Brother Zhou, don't tell me you still have a chance. Rise! The aura that Lu Meng had been suppressing suddenly exploded out. A strand of fire soared up from under his feet. A ferocious beast appeared above his head, brandishing its claws and roaring. When the ferocious beast roared, Lu Meng's state of fire was raised to its peak. It completely suppressed Zhou Lingheng, whose aura had fallen to the bottom. The state of wind was quickly suppressed by the state of fire. Soon, Zhou Lingheng was pressed into a corner, unable to move. Zhou Lingheng's expression changed greatly. It's over, my state is suppressed. My speed is no longer an advantage. Lu Meng drew his saber and hacked down. Zhou Lingheng blocked with his 2 swords. However, his strength was not comparable to Lu Meng's in the first place. Now that Zhou Lingheng's state was completely suppressed, it was even harder for him to block. Sweat dripped down from his forehead as he bitterly held on. Defeat! Lu Meng shouted and took a step forward. The entire 4th floor shook a few times and a huge force was transmitted. Zhou Lingheng was immediately sent flying and fell heavily on the ground. Zhou Lingheng had been defeated within 3 moves. Furthermore, it was really within 3 moves. It was exactly as Xiao Qin had said. The people who mocked Xiao Qin earlier felt ashamed in their hearts. How did this brat get it right? He is indeed only a superior grade martial saint. He must have guessed blindly. He must have guessed blindly. If we could not tell, how could he? The few of them felt very sullen and depressed. They could only lie to themselves. Right, he must have guessed blindly. However, even so, I do not like him. He is too arrogant. If Miss Xiao Xiao was not here, I would not have been able to endure it. I would have made a move to teach this brat a lesson. It seems like someone can no longer endure it. Bai Shuiheng has already gone up. A man dressed in white with a sword at his waist walked over to Xiao Qin with heavy steps. He said indifferently, Bai Shuiheng, I heard your evaluation earlier. You seem to be quite strong. I would like to seek some advice from you. I wonder if that is possible. Fatso said softly, this fellow is Zhou Lingheng's good friend. He is here to help him take revenge. You better be careful. Jin Wuji, who was in the middle, frowned slightly and said, Bai Shuiheng, you are only a step away from becoming a peak inferior grade martial king. It is not appropriate for you to exchange pointers with a superior grade martial saint. Chapter 371. Earlier, Xiao Qin had embarrassed him. In his heart, he hoped that Bai Shuiheng would teach Xiao Qin a lesson. However, firstly, Bai Shuiheng was Su Xiaoxiao's friend. Secondly, Yu Chenxi happened to be beside him. At this moment, he might as well appear more open and aboveboard. Otherwise, he might attract the other party's attention. However, who knew, Xiao Qin completely ignored his suggestion. When he saw the indistinct purple electricity around the other party, he immediately became interested. The other party was actually a swordsman who comprehended the state of thunder. Xiao Qin stood up and looked at Bai Shuiheng. He said softly, I accept your challenge. Of all the states, the state of thunder was the most difficult to comprehend. It was also the state with the strongest attack power compared to the other states. Compared to the other states, it did not have many tricks to it. It only had a pure berserk offensive power. It was also the purest attack of the natural heavenly Tao. Since Xiao Qian comprehended the state of thunder, he had never fought with another cultivator who comprehended the state of thunder. Hence, the moment this Bai Shuiheng made a move, he became interested. Bai Shuiheng said indifferently, You speak so extravagantly. I want to see how strong you are. Don't worry. Don't say that I am using my cultivation to bully you. I will only use 50% of my strength to fight you. Xiao Qian held the lunar shadow saber in his hand and slowly walked to the empty space. He said indifferently, There is no need to go through so much trouble. Make your move. Very good. Let's see what qualifications you have to be arrogant. Boom. Electric light flickered as Bai Shuiheng drew his sword at lightning speed. A crack of thunder resounded in the vast floor, numbing everyone's eardrums. The instant Bai Shuiheng drew his sword, it was like a surging bolt of lightning, giving off an incomparably dazzling purple light. With the force of his kick, he covered the distance of more than 100 meters in an instant. The dazzling electric sword flew towards Xiao Qian's face. This sword contained the speed and berserk of lightning. Before the sword arrived, it kicked up a strong wind. The hair of the people behind Xiao Qian fluttered in the wind. They could not help but squint. What a powerful sword strike! After not seeing Bai Shuiheng for a few years, his strength had actually increased again. This person was much stronger than Zhou Lingheng. When everyone saw this sword move that was as fast as a gust of wind and had an earth-shattering momentum, they all exclaimed in surprise. Xiao Qian's expression did not change. When the sword was about 5 meters away from him, he drew the lunar shadow saber in his right hand at lightning speed. Dang! There was a melodious sound of weapons clashing. Most of the people did not even see how Xiao Qian drew his saber. By the time they heard the sound, Bai Shuiheng had already moved back 5 steps. His expression was extremely grave. What's going on? How did this guy attack? I didn't even see it clearly. Strange, I didn't see it either. When I heard the sound, Bai Shuiheng had already taken 5 steps back. Among the 100 people seated on the 4th floor, only less than 10 people saw how the saber was unsheathed. Xiao Qian's attack arrived first despite being launched later. Its speed increased to Mach 2 in an instant. He used the stronger state of thunder to strike the weak point of his opponent's sword technique. He easily repelled Bai Shuiheng's attack in an instant. Jin Wuji had an astonished expression on his face. He muttered, What a strong state of thunder. He is clearly only at small perfection, but his foundation is several times stronger than Bai Shuiheng's. This person definitely cultivates a high-rank lightning-attributed cultivation technique. Yu Chenxi asked softly, Who is this person? Does young Master Jin know? Jin Wuji was slightly stunned. He did not expect Yu Chenxi to be interested in this person. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he said softly, I don't know him. Miss Xiao Xiao brought him here. Yu Chenxi said, Oh, then continue watching. Xiao Qian looked at Bai Shuiheng and said indifferently, Use your full power. Your state is not as good as mine. You can only use your advantage in essence to fight me. Otherwise, you will lose to my saber in 10 moves. When the others heard Xiao Qian say such startling words in such a calm tone, they felt a strange shock in their hearts. When Xiao Qian said these words, it did not seem inappropriate at all. His tone was very natural, as though he was talking about something insignificant. Just based on this calmness, some people were already certain that Xiao Qian was not an ordinary superior-grade martial saint. Arrogant. Don't speak as though I will lose for sure. Thundercloud sword chop. Bai Shuiheng smiled coldly and charged over again. Thunderclouds formed around Bai Shuiheng. Boundless electricity flickered in the middle of the clouds. There was a series of crackling sounds as electricity circled around Bai Shuiheng's body. As the thunderclouds churned, the aura of Bai Shuiheng's body rose continuously. He was like a treasured sword that was constantly being sharpened, waiting to be unsheathed. When the crowd felt the might of this sword, their confidence in Bai Shuiheng increased. No matter how high a state a superior grade martial saint's state was, he would not be able to dodge this sword. Chop! A sword light flashed, and Bai Shuiheng's body flashed through the thunderclouds. He was like a bolt of lightning leaping through the clouds. Dang! There was another melodious sound of weapons clashing. Most of the people still did not see how Xiao Qin made his move. After they heard the sound, they only saw Bai Shuiheng flying backward. This was a very strange feeling. It was clearly right in front of them, but why did they always hear the sound first before seeing the scene? Jin Wuji muttered, most people would be able to reach Mach 2 after slowly increasing their speed. However, to reach Mach 2 in an instant is too difficult. I wonder how he did it. Yu Chenxi looked at Xiao Chen with an increasingly interested gaze. He said softly, this is just a simple drawing the saber. However, I have not seen many people practice it to such a level. Dang! 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 Bai Shuiheng sent out another 3 moves. However, Xiao Chen broke them with one saber strike each time. Every time Xiao Chen executed drawing the saber at an extremely fast speed, he would be able to find the weak point of the sword technique and break it with one saber strike. A strong state of thunder and an extremely fast saber technique. He is the white-robed bladesman, Xiao Chen. It is definitely him. The white-robed bladesman holds a long saber and a blue strip of cloth tied around his head. Furthermore, there are 2 strips in front of him. There is no mistake. A few people finally guessed Xiao Chen's identity. However, most of them had never heard of the white-robed bladesman before, so they all asked about it. The nations of these people were rather far from the great Qin nation. The news of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion had not spread there yet. However, after hearing these people talk about Xiao Chen's deeds, the earlier contempt that many cultivators had for Xiao Chen vanished, replaced by grave expressions. If Xiao Chen had defeated Duan Muqing and the others, it would not have been a big deal. After all, these people were not at the peak. However, the news of Xiao Chen easily defeating the Holy Land's outer disciples shocked them. Jin Wuji had a pensive look in his eyes. He thought to himself, so, he is the white-robed bladesman, Xiao Chen. I finally got to see him in person today. I have received 5 strikes from you. It is time for you to receive 1 saber strike from me. Bai Shuiheng took a step back and gathered his aura. He said indifferently, isn't it just 1 saber strike? With my defense, I can receive 10 saber strikes from you. After Bai Shuiheng made his first move, Xiao Chen's interest in this place immediately decreased significantly. He felt somewhat disappointed. Although this person had comprehended the state of thunder, he had taken the wrong path. He only pursued the strength of his state and did not settle down to perfectly merge his state with his sword technique. Bai Shuiheng only focused on merging his saber techniques. When he attacked, his might was vast and mighty. His aura flourished and he could easily suppress a state of the same rank. He could even instantly kill a state of a lower level. However, if he ran into a cultivator with a state stronger than his, and he did not merge his state with his saber technique, his moves would be full of openings. This was also why Xiao Chen could easily break Bai Shuiheng's sword technique by using drawing the saber at Mach 2. If it were another opponent, it would be very difficult to do so. Such an exchange would not be of much help to Xiao Chen. He could only end the fight quickly. ZZ. Using the power of thunder and lightning, Bai Shuiheng set up 3 thick and solid thunder and lightning barriers around him, from the outside to the inside, one layer after another. This was especially so for the last layer. It stuck tightly to Bai Shuiheng's skin. The purple electric light was as thick as a battle armor. This Bai Shuiheng says that he is not afraid, but he even used his trump card. He actually laid down 3 layers of defense. The people at the peak of the crowd laughed gently. Xiaochen tightened his grip on the lunar shadow saber and looked at Bai Shuiheng, who was covered in defenses. After he finished setting up his defenses, the scarlet massacre throne in Xiaochen's sea of consciousness flowed along his meridians and infused into the saber. The saber, flickering with purple electric light, immediately turned red and purple. Xiaochen pushed off the ground and executed the blue dragon cloud soaring art, stabbing out with his saber. Bang! 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 The 3 barriers made of electricity only lasted for a moment before being easily broken by Xiaochen's saber technique infused with the states of massacre and thunder. The surging force of the saber immediately knocked Bai Shuiheng back, causing him to fall heavily to the ground. Unexpectedly, he defeated Bai Shuiheng with 1 saber strike. The white-robed bladesman truly lives up to his reputation. Among the 100 of us, he can rank within the top 10. It is hard to imagine that he actually comes from a sect in the great Qin nation. Bai Shuiheng's defenses are useless before him. The sharpness of this saber strike is really shocking. Bai Shuiheng is too arrogant. After defeating Bai Shuiheng with 1 saber strike, the people who mocked Xiaochen earlier immediately shut up, no longer daring to underestimate him. The crowd all commented on the fight between the two, giving an objective evaluation of Xiaochen's strength. Indeed, it was as Xiaochen expected. If he wanted to gain the respect of others, he could only use the saber in his hand. That was the most direct way and also the most persuasive. Xiaochen performed a cup-fist salute to Bai Shuiheng, who stood up. Thank you for letting me win. Xiaochen had held back with his saber strike, the state had not penetrated Bai Shuiheng's body. Hence, Bai Shuiheng had only suffered some external injuries. Bai Shuiheng felt somewhat ashamed. Originally, he had wanted to stand up for his good friend. He had not expected Xiaochen to deal with him in 1 move. He did not say anything and returned to his seat. Unexpectedly, he grasped the state of massacre. No wonder he could challenge someone of higher cultivation so easily. Seeing Xiaochen return to his seat, Yu Chenxi felt enlightened. However, Xiaochen's cultivation was still too low. His state of massacre was not as complete as his state of thunder. Xiaochen was weaker than expected. However, his future potential was immeasurable. Chapter 372. As the sparring continued, the atmosphere became livelier and livelier. After every sparring session, someone would comment on it. Among them, there were 5 or 6 people who attracted Xiaochen's attention. These people had comprehended their states to great perfection. More importantly, they had formed their own unique characteristics. For example, there was a great Xia nation swordsman who comprehended the state of wind. He infused the formless characteristic of the state of wind into his sword technique. When this swordsman attacked, he left no traces behind, perfectly merging with the aura of his martial technique. At the very least, Xiaochen would not be able to see any flaws in this move. There was also a great Chu nation cultivator who comprehended the state of wind as well. However, he did not focus on the speed of the state of wind. Instead, he used his own martial technique to forcefully bring out the berserk side of the state of wind to the extreme, merging it with his surging waves and his grand sword technique. When this cultivator attacked, a strong wind howled and formed a horrifying storm. It was like the sword wind had exploded. There was also an expert who comprehended the state of water. He infused the unique characteristics of flowing water into his momentum. When this cultivator attacked, his sword left no trace. The sharp sword light seemed to appear from nowhere, making it hard for others to catch the trajectory of his attack. This greatly broadened Xiaochen's horizons. He now felt like he had gained some comprehension of the state of thunder. Xiaochen had already infused the state of thunder into his saber technique long ago, combining the berserk and ferocious attacks of thunder. These were the 2 characteristics. Most of the thunder in nature had these 2 characteristics. Under the collision of the clouds, the thunder would explode. When the clouds collided, it accumulated its aura continuously before striking out, displaying its berserk and ferocious attacks. Compared to the other states, the offensive and destructive power of the state of thunder was greater. However, its weakness was that it was difficult to maintain it continuously. With such a high destructive power, every strike exhausted a large amount of essence. Furthermore, one had to continuously accumulate aura. Hence, compared to the other states, it lacked flexibility and flexibility. Xiaochen thought to himself, I can only see the simple aspects of the state of thunder. Berserk and speed are also brought out to their limits. However, looking at the martial artists here, every state has its own unique characteristics. Clearly, the state of thunder has its own unique characteristics as well. As far as I am concerned, I only need to merge these two characteristics of the state of thunder with my own martial technique to perfection for now. However, in the future, if I want to turn my state into a will, I will definitely need to have a comprehensive understanding of the state of thunder. Thus, from now on, I have to prepare for a rainy day and understand the state of thunder better. The exchange of pointers continued. Jin Wuji also left the stage. He truly lived up to his reputation as one of the top 100 contestants of the previous 5-nation youth competition. He had comprehended the concept of sharpness, the concept of metal. Among all the concepts, the concept of sharpness was undoubtedly one of the strongest. His attacks were swift and fierce, and the sharpness of his sword was unparalleled. Very few people could withstand the might of his sword. Even if one's defenses were firm, he could still easily break a hole in them. His aura was like an extremely sharp blade, and the sword chi that he unleashed had perfectly displayed the sharpness of the blade. That swordsman, who had merged the berserk characteristic of the state of wind with his sword technique, only managed to last 15 moves against Jin Wuji. Of course, this was the result of both sides suppressing their strength. If they had fought at full strength, they would have lasted much longer. Small holes appeared in the berserk sword wind. Then, the sword wind shattered into tiny whirlwinds, losing all its momentum. Of course, this was the result of both sides suppressing their strength. If they had fought at full strength, they would have lasted much longer. Brother Jean, you are indeed strong. I admire you. In the next 5-nation youth competition, you will probably be able to rise by another 10 ranks, the swordsman He Huan, whom Jin Wuji defeated, said in admiration. Jin Wuji felt somewhat pleased in his heart. However, he still smiled modestly and said, Brother, he is too kind. Your state of wind is unique. It is much stronger than it was 3 years ago. If you could infuse a special characteristic of wind into your sword technique, I would not be a match for you. He Huan performed a cupped fist salute and said, Brother, he speaks too highly of me. Your state of wind is very unique. It is much stronger than it was 3 years ago. If you could infuse a special characteristic of wind into your sword technique, I would not be a match for you. He Huan performed a cupped fist salute and said, infusing a special characteristic is already difficult enough. If I want to infuse another special characteristic, I would have to find another high-ranked sword technique. At that time, if Brother Jean has a good sword technique, you can exchange it with me. Definitely. The two of them withdrew. At this point in the gathering, most of the people had already exchanged moves. Some people could not help but look at Yu Chenxi. She was the proud daughter of heaven of the Supreme Sky sect. At the age of 16, she managed to rank within the top 50 in the 5-nation youth competition. Now that another year had passed, who knew how strong she had become? I am Lu Meng. I would like to seek guidance from Miss Chenxi. Finally, someone could no longer hold it in. He stepped forward and requested to exchange moves with Yu Chenxi. At this moment, Lu Meng was very nervous. The other party was the last disciple of the Supreme Sky Sect's sect master, one of the 10 great sects of the Great Jin Nation. She was famous in the Great Jin Nation and even in the entire continent. She was completely different from the circle that Lu Meng was in. Being able to meet her here was a complete coincidence. Lu Meng was worried that Yu Chenxi would look down on his strength and reject the invitation. Yu Chenxi had an extraordinary aura. She revealed a gentle smile on her fairy-like face. She said softly, I do not dare to ask for guidance. However, it is possible for us to exchange moves. Unexpectedly, Yu Chenxi agreed so easily. Some of the cultivators present could not help but feel regret. If they had known earlier, they would have invited Yu Chenxi first. Now that Lu Meng had taken the initiative, they could only watch from the side. Lu Meng rejoiced in his heart. He performed a cup-fist salute and said, Miss Yu, please. The battle between Jin Wuji and He Huan had already pushed the atmosphere of this gathering to its peak. With Yu Chenxi making a move, the true climax of the gathering was about to arrive. The outstanding talents of the various nations sitting against the wall on the fourth floor all focused their attention on the two people in the middle. They could not take their eyes off them, they even held their breaths. Xiao Chen was no exception. He was very interested in Yu Chenxi, the proud daughter of heaven from the great Jin nation. He wanted to see what was so special about this genius of the great Jin nation. Everyone had seen Lu Meng's strength with their own eyes. He was one of the few cultivators who could comprehend their own state. Now, he was qualified to exchange moves with Yu Chenxi. The two of them bowed to each other and slowly stood up. Lu Meng did not dare to hold back against Yu Chenxi. He took out the thick saber on his back and activated his state of fire. A ferocious beast formed above Lu Meng's head. The state of fire was raised to its peak. Instantly, the place became hot, and the air became dry. Ha! Lu Meng's saber carried a boundless flame as he charged forward. Before he arrived, the ferocious beast above him had already launched itself at him. This ferocious beast was formed from the pure state of fire. It was extraordinarily mighty. Normally, even a superior-grade martial king would have to retreat when it faced its attack. A gentle smile appeared on Yu Chenxi's pretty face. Good timing. Boom. Yu Chenxi clenched her lily-white hands into fists. When she saw the ferocious beast charging at her, she did not retreat. Instead, she took a step forward and punched. A spot of morning light exploded on her fist. It was like the light of the rising sun breaking through the darkness before dawn. It was resplendent and dazzling. The surging energy exploded together with the fist. The ferocious flame beast was instantly blasted into countless sparks. Before the huge energy dissipated, it headed for Lu Meng, who was following closely behind. Lu Meng's expression changed slightly. He quickly stopped and planted his feet on the ground. He condensed his aura and circulated all the energy in his body. Then, he used his saber to shatter the fist wind. Rays of light spread out from the fist wind, forming sparkling and translucent particles of light in the vast space of the fourth floor. Yu Chenxi leaped into the air and took the initiative to attack. She sent another punch at Lu Meng. The morning light on the fist wind was dazzling and dazzling. The faint golden light gave Yu Chenxi's exquisite figure a faint glow. She looked dignified, divine, and tyrannical. It was hard to imagine that such a pretty girl with an otherworldly aura could give off such a strong and tyrannical aura. Bang! 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 Lu Meng brought out his state of fire to its limits. His saber light danced as he did his best to block the fist wind descending from the sky. Yu Chenxi did not even use her state. She only used her vast essence and the ferocious and tyrannical fist wind. Yu Chenxi sent out punch after punch in the air. The light of the morning light blossomed continuously, forcing Lu Meng back step by step. There was no way he could put up a fight. Bang! Another fist wind struck Lu Meng's saber, and the light exploded. Lu Meng was knocked back 5 steps, and his complexion paled slightly. The difference in strength was too great. There was no way for Lu Meng to fight, they were not on the same level. Lu Meng scattered the state of fire and sheathed his saber. He smiled bitterly and said, I lost. The Supreme Sky Sect's Morning Sun Fist truly lives up to its name. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.